Howdy, folks.
Welcome to the CNC Power Hour. I'm Chris,
I'm Lou.
and we're here with our Throne of Eldraine set review.
Yeah, or
kind
just
of
overview, primer, kind of.
Yeah,
Trying to still figure out how we want to call it.
yeah, but it's just kind of like a limited overview. What to expect at common and uncommon when you go to your pre-release.
Provide our thoughts on what kind of archetypes we want to look at. How you want to think about building your deck when you have got certain piles of cards in front of you.
Right. Exactly. And Throne of Eldraine adds a bunch of interesting cards, a bunch of flavorful cards.
Yeah. Because previously we did this for the core set, which,
Yeah.
Granted, Core 2020 was a fairly complex set for a core set, but now we're in a full-on, all right, balls out, kind of R&D doing their stuff.
Yeah, which is really interesting, and you can tell the level of complexity here that there's not there's one vanilla creature in white.
Yeah.
It's a 3/1 for 3, I think.
3/2, 3/2 for 3. It's like the standard limited vanilla creature.
Yeah, it's the only one that exists in the set. Everything else has an adventure attached to it or whatever.
Or at least some kind of keywords in there too.
Yeah, which we'll talk about. We'll talk about adventures and mechanics and things like that when we get to them. But real quick, we want to talk about the most important thing with your decks: removal.
Yes, as always.
Which we started off the M20 review the same way, and I think it's really important to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of removal in this set, comparatively.
Yep.
Compared to Core 20, there's slightly less at common. There's some more at uncommon, which we'll talk about that too. And we're also going to talk about our combat tricks,
right?
Because those are going to be really important.
Yep.
Because the ground is going to get gummed up. There are a lot of 2/3s, a lot of 3/4s, things like that.
Yep. In
the set. But so the first card that we're going to talk about is Outflank.
Mm-hmm.
For a single white, you have an instant at common. Outflank deals damage to target attacking or blocking creature equal to the number of creatures you control. It's fine.
It's fine. It's interesting because white has the go wide element of it. White, as always, is going to be generating a ton of tokens. It depends. It really does depend. Although another thing we note is that there's actually not a lot of. There is no real board wipe.
Right.
So if you manage to create a bunch of tokens in white, you actually have a pretty good shot of keeping them there.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, other than dying from attacking and jump blocking and all that jazz.
Yeah.
But if you had managed to get a whole bunch of creatures out, there's not a lot of ways to get rid of all of them in one mass go.
Right. Yeah. There's two. We looked at it. There's 2 wraths at rare.
Yeah.
And I think that's it.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is a fine card. It scales with how many creatures you have, but that's about it.
Right. Trapped in the Tower, 1 and a white, enchant creature without flying. Enchanted creature can't attack or block, and its activated abilities can't be activated.
So
Pacifism.
And we looked at this, and there's 115 creatures in the set that this will hit.
Yep.
27 creatures have flying. Period. Mm-hmm. 2 creatures can get flying.
2 creatures can get flying from an activated ability, but the only way to actually give a creature flying is Fairy Guide Mother.
Yeah.
Flavorfully, great win. But that also means that if you hit somebody with Trapped in the Tower, it's very likely going to be stuck there forever.
Yeah.
Unless you have Enchantment Destruction.
Right, for sure. So pacifism effects, if you're in white, you're running them.
Yeah.
There's no question about it.
Right.
Next is a similar effect, Charmed Sleep, 1 blue.
Enchanted creature, taps, doesn't untap.
Yep.
Solid. It's always standard, typical kind of thing. Not much to say about it.
Yeah, there aren't that many activated abilities that don't really affect combat.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And a lot of them don't require tapping.
Mm-hmm.
The pumping ones, but.
Yeah. But I mean, if you're not blocking with them, it's not doing anything anyway.
Yeah.
So, Charmed Sleep, great. Again, if you're in blue, you're definitely running it.
Yep.
This next card, if you're in black, you're definitely running it, and you might not even be running it if you're in black.
This is premier removal right here, baked into a pie.
Yep.
Yeah, destroy target creature, you create a food token. Now, 2 black. So, granted, we just came out of murder, but I'm thinking, whenever I think back on the unconditional removal in black, it usually ends up being 5 mana.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of back the Deadly Visit from Ravnica, right? The destroy creature, surveil 1, and can't remember what Ravnica Allegiance's big kill spell was, but similarly, it's always around 5 mana.
Yeah.
So having it at 4, solid, and generate a food token. Sweet. Got a lot of food synergies.
It is aggressively costed. It's murder and then 1 mana, get a food token.
Yeah.
Which, food, this is the first time we're talking about it. So you create an artifact token that says pay 2, tap, sack it, you gain 3 life.
Right.
This is important because there are a lot of things that deal with food tokens
Right.
In a positive way for you.
Right. So, and also considering, against an aggro matchup too, extra life is helpful.
For sure. So we have another black removal spell here. We have Festive Funeral. So for 4 and a black, you have an instant card that says target creature gets -X until end of turn, where X is the number of cards in your graveyard.
Right. So this is closer to what I was expecting in terms of the old unconditional removal kind of stuff. This definitely scales more to late game than anything else. So hopefully by that point you have a lot of cards in your graveyard. At least in black, that sort of makes sense. We'll see when we start discussing the decks that we want to look into. Black has a lot of ways to get stuff in the graveyard, and you don't really mind if things die. So,
yeah, it's okay. And I mean, there are a couple of X ones, but really there are a lot of X3s, X4s,
right,
that you're going to want to deal with. So this is definitely going to go off late game, and it's good that it's costed at 5 because that's probably around the time that you're going to be casting.
Right. When we start talking about creature combat, it'll be interesting. But just as a sort of a heads up, there's a lot of 3 toughness creatures in this set. Not a lot of anything beyond that.
Right.
So, Reef Soul, 1 and a black, sorcery. Destroy target creature with power 3 or less. This hits a lot of creatures.
Yeah, it hits over 100 creatures in the set.
Yeah.
It's 10, and that's not counting tokens or anything like that.
Right.
This is a reprint from Origins, which I'm really glad that it's back.
It's great removal. There's a lot of things to hit with it. What'll be interesting is trying to dodge it with stuff like equipment, which will be a big part of this when it comes to creature combat. When we start getting into like creature stats and stuff, it's going to be interesting. So the fact that this is a sorcery, it's I'm actually interested in thinking how often you'll be able to blank this card with pumping your own creatures via other ways.
Yeah, I can think of a couple off the top of my head.
Yeah,
there's a flash equipment, and there are a couple of other things which we'll get into later as we start discussing the decks.
Yeah. Blow your house down. So we're in red now. 2 and a red. Sorcery. Up to 3 target creatures can't block this turn. Destroy any of them that are walls. So yeah, there's a destruction part, but this is more so that's punch through. Right?
Yeah.
So what's interesting to me is that when you start thinking about I'm thinking compared to like Cosmotronic Wave back in Ravnica, where it's 1 damage to everything and they all can't block. Right. 3 creatures. By the time you need to start punching through an alpha striking, there's probably going to be more than 3 creatures.
Yeah.
However, in red, and especially if you add in like black or something, there's a lot of ways to give your creatures like menace and stuff. Maybe sometimes just taking 3 out of that, or even their toughest defenders, might actually be worth it.
For sure. And in case you guys are wondering, there are 3 walls in the set that this will destroy. 2 of them are colorless, so you might see them more than the other one, which is it's 1 in a red.
Right.
For the Trebuchet, which we'll talk about that a bit later. Next is something I'm excited to have back in Standard is Fling.
Yep.
1 in a red instant. As an additional cost to cast the spell Sack a creature, Fling deals damage equal to the sacked creature's power to any target.
So now we have Fling and Thud in Standard?
Yes. Thud is sorcery speed, but yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but Fling is in.
Yeah.
I'm excited to just pump up a feather Legionnaire and throw them at someone.
I'm just going to throw turtles at you.
Damn it. I'll recap the turtle story later. There will be a dramatic reenactment.
Yeah.
I wrote down the exact cards that Phil used for that. Like, there's a Reddit post somewhere that has the exact sequence of cards he played to kill me with a turtle on turn 5.
So stick around at the end. We have a turtle story for you.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Things that can't kill turtles. Scorching Dragonfire. 1 in a red. There are 2 turtles in the set?
Yeah, 2 turtles.
This can't kill either of them. So Scorching Dragonfire, 1 in a red for an instant. Deals 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker. If that creature or planeswalker would die this turn, exile it instead. Yep. So 3, like we were saying earlier, three's a really big number. It hits 96 creatures on its own. More if you block and then do this after combat or whatever.
Yeah, so there's the 3 toughness is a big point. So Scorching Dragonfire is your common removal. There's and then also just looking at the creature matchup, there's a lot of 2/3s, fair amount of 3/3s. Couple of 3/2s too, but there's a surprising number of 2/3s, and it makes it feel like it's a real gummy board state on the ground. So unless you have combat tricks, So knights can be super aggressive because they can pump each other up,
Yep.
give each other menace, or you're using equipment. It's going to be really interesting how like just straight creature combat is actually going to be not very interactive.
Right.
So you're going to rely on stuff like this where you're scorching dragonfires and your equipment to do stuff in order to actually get damage through. And with food,
Yeah.
I'm actually surprised. I actually think this format's going to be a lot slower than you expect.
Yeah, I think so. There are a couple of decks that I think will push the format a little bit to the speedier side, but for the most part, it's going to be pretty grindy on the ground.
Yeah.
You and your opponent are going to be gaining a bunch of life back and forth.
Yeah.
And we'll see, but I think a lot of these matches are going to take a while.
Yeah. Unless you have like flying.
Right. Flying's big to have in this set. There's not a lot of flying synergy.
Right.
But
you don't
they're
need
really
it.
Good. Yeah, you don't need it. And there's not that many creatures with reach. I think there's like 3.
The only one I think of immediately is the spider.
There's a spider and there's a giant that has reach.
Trebuchet and also the Robin Hood character.
That's right.
I think Trebuchet is reach, right?
Trebuchet does have reach.
Okay, cool. Anyway, back to Searing Barrage. 4 and a red. Searing Barrage deals 5 damage to target creature. Adamant. If at least 3 red mana was spent to cast this spell, Searing Barrage deals 3 damage to that creature's controller. Woohoo!
Yeah.
I mean, this will kill basically everything in the set.
Yeah, this is this kills practically everything. It's a technically splashable Chandra's Outrage, which we saw back in Core 2020.
Right.
But the 5 damage is important, and Adamant. There's Adamant MTG, who's like a big content producer.
Okay, got it.
And that's what I think about whenever I read Adamant. So Adamant is you'll see it across all 5 colors, and we'll talk about all of the cards that have it because it's not important. Well, I'm not going to say it's not important. It's not completely necessary to the spell. You're still getting a lot of value off of it, even if you're not casting Adamant.
Yeah. So we're going to go over all the Adamant cards later on and basically sort of talk about where on the scale of how important do you want to Adamant this particular spell. Right. And we'll say, like, not all of them you really care about Adamanting. We'll get there.
Right, for sure. So the next card is a bit conditional. Fell the Pheasant. 1 and a green. Fell the Pheasant deals 5 damage to target creature with flying, and then you create a food token. Right. So 5 damage kills every flyer in the set.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
So
it's like a plummet.
It's basically a plummet that you get a food token for.
Yep. But again, because of the 5 damage and how much I feel like we want to emphasize equipment is going to matter in this set, there is a chance that you might, buff up a creature that you control that it's out of range of Fell the Pheasant. But, that's why I'm thinking is like equipment's going to be a big deal. Mm-hmm. Like that's one of the few ways you can prevent this because there actually is no actual plummet.
Right.
So, maybe. All right, out muscle. 3 and a green. Suplex a bear. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control, then it fights target creature you don't control. However, if you spend at least 3 green mana to cast the spell, the creature you control gains indestructible until end of turn. So we have fight effects before. I think this was like Hunt the Weak or Prey on the Weak.
Yeah.
Was the previous.
Prey upon? No.
Something like that.
Hunt the Weak. Hunt the Weak for sure.
Yeah. It was the put a +1/+1 and a Savage Stomp.
Savage Stomp, yeah.
Savage Stomp were the 2. So, yeah, perfectly solid fight effect. The indestructible one is interesting because this also means that if you manage to adamant your creature, you also get to swing in for combat without worrying about any damage that was caused from the fight.
Yep.
So, yay.
Yeah, no, it's a valuable card. Mm-hmm. Let's see.
Similarly with the +1/+1 counter stuff, like there's not too many ways to put +1/+1 counters. Mm-hmm. So the thing is, like I said, a lot of your messing with power and toughness and bumping is going to be in your in your equipment. Right. So a permanent +1/+1 counter like that could be valuable.
That's true. So the next card we're going to talk about is Return to Nature. 1 and a green. Instant. Choose 1. Destroy target artifact. Destroy target enchantment. Or exile target card from a graveyard. Yeah. So this hits 17 artifact creatures, 35 non-artifact creatures, and then 18 enchantments. Yeah. Or non-creature artifacts.
Right.
And then if your opponent tries to reanimate something, you can exile it in response.
Right.
It's flexible. It's definitely going to be like a sideboard card.
Right.
It's very matchup dependent.
Yeah. White though, especially if you got trapped in the tower. Then you have that box, that glass tomb,
Mm-hmm.
right? That kind of stuff. But again, I like to once again emphasize. I know I sound like a broken record here, but destroy their equipment.
Destroy their equipment. Nope, it's going to be important.
Yeah. Scalding Cauldron 1 for an artifact. 3 tap, sacrifice Scalding Cauldron. It deals 3 damage to target creature. Again, this is 3 damage. So if you have, when we get to creatures, ones with 4 toughness are going to be super relevant.
Mm-hmm.
They can block a lot of stuff because you're very rarely going to get anything over 3 power once like 3 or 4 CMC. So it's going to be able to block. So these kind of things where you deal 3 damage to a creature, it'll wipe out a lot of things, which is why 4 toughness is super important in this set.
For sure. So now let's move on to the uncommon removal real quick. So with the common removal, we didn't really talk about the odds of seeing them.
Yeah.
If you're in a draft, you'll see 2-ish copies of any common going around. In sealed, you'll see half of a copy. So like you have like basically each common has a 50% chance of showing up.
Yep.
For uncommons, it's much less. So in a draft, you'll see slightly less than one of each common going around.
Yep.
So you may never even see this card.
Right.
And then sealed, it's like 0.23% chance or whatever for it to show up. So if you have the uncommon removal, you're going to be running it in your colors because most of it is pretty powerful, and you're not going to see a lot of it.
Yep.
So the first one we're going to talk about is Glass Casket. So 1 and a white. It's an artifact. When it enters the battlefield, exile target creature and opponent controls with CMC 3 or less until it leaves the battlefield.
So glass wrap?
Yeah, glass wrap. That's exactly what it is. Silk wrap was Fate.
Yeah, something like that. I know it was a
Cons block.
Yeah.
But this hits 87 creatures in the set. Pretty good.
Yeah. Frogify, 1 and a blue, enchant creature. Enchanted creature loses all abilities and is a blue frog creature. Blue frog creature with base power and toughness 1/1. So Casmina's transmutation. Only it's a frog.
Yeah.
I mean, solid. Again, there's a lot of ways to. This is one of the few ways you got to punch through, right? You got a lot of funky 3/2s, 2/3s, 3/3s, even elks.
Yeah.
Right? To turn into 1/1. It makes equipment on them much less helpful.
Yep.
You know, +1/+1 counters. There's not a lot of +1/+1 counters in this set. So turning them into 1/1 and mucking with their power and toughness, super useful.
For sure. The next thing we have is Bognaughty. 3 black for a creature. It's a fairy that has 3 power, 3 toughness, and flying. But the important thing here is 2 and a black, sacrifice a food. Target creature gets -3/-3 until end of turn.
And again, 3 toughness. Again, showing up again.
Yep. And so this is one of the things that eats the food that you create. So you don't actually have to crack the food yourself. You can save them and use it for value, which we'll talk about a lot later.
So then we have Epic Downfall. 1 and a black for sorcery. Exile target creature with converted mana cost 3 or greater. So big stuff. Normally you see this effect in white. Well, white is power and toughness, so I guess converted mana cost is a fairly new one. But yeah, so if you thought black didn't have enough ways to unconditionally remove your big scary folks, what's that?
That's true. Yeah, it mostly like between this and Reef Soul, you can kind of remove anything.
Yeah.
This hits 55 creatures in the set.
Right.
Which is,
and I'm pretty sure all of them are going to be scary must-answer creatures.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Yep.
Next we have Embereth Shieldbreaker. 1 in a red. Sorry, I guess Ember Shieldbreaker / Battle Display. So this creature has an adventure on it.
Yep.
Adventures work in a really interesting way. So you can cast the creature like normal, or you can cast the adventure, exile it, and then you can cast the creature afterwards.
Yep.
However, if someone exiles your creature, you can't recast the creature.
Only if it's exiled because of the adventure and you cast it.
Right.
And also, that's the only time if you cast it as the adventure does it ever count as a non-creature spell.
Right.
Everywhere else, it's still a creature. So you can't, if later on you have something that's like you can cast non-instants and sorceries from the top of your deck or something. No, it's still a creature.
Right.
See a lot of confusion around that, which, I mean, yeah, it's edge cases and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, for sure. But, so Battle Display is a sorcery. For a single red, you get to destroy target artifact.
Destroy those equipment. Come on, let's do it. There's actually not a lot of artifact destruction.
That's true.
So that's the thing. This is one of the few artifact destruction spells on there, and it's stapled onto a body. So Yeah, this is fantastic. I would love this, and just any kind of red aggro kind of deal, or just holding it up there as a alternative.
Yeah, and it curves out. It's really good.
Yeah,
I like this guy or girl. Girl.
Could be.
Yeah.
Then we have, this is interesting. 1 in a red, Joust. For sorcery, choose target creature you control and target creature you don't control. The creature you control gets +2/+1 until end of turn if it's a knight. Then those creatures fight each other. So it's rare to have a fight effect in red.
Mm.
It's even rarer to also see that it's a pump spell too for your knights. So if you're in a knight deck, this is fantastic. What's interesting to me also is the +2/+1, because this points to that your combat tricks are what's going to get you aggressive. If you're just throwing that out there with throwing down with creatures with nothing to boost them, just vanilla creatures on the ground, things are going to gum up.
For sure. Next spell is Red Cap Melee. For a single red and an instant, it deals 4 damage to target creature or planeswalker. But if a non-red permanent is dealt damage this way, you have to sacrifice a land.
Right.
So this is really interesting. There's a whole cycle of these colored things, but we're not going to get into all of them. But this one kills a bunch of stuff in the set, right? 96. 96 of the. Sorry, hold on. No, 119 creatures.
Yep.
27 of them are red. So if you're in a mirror match, or if your opponent's also running red, you won't have to sacrifice a land.
Right.
But for a single red, it's still pretty good.
If you're running an aggressive enough red deck, though, with low-to-the-ground creatures, like sacrificing a mountain might not be that big of a deal, right? If you're running something mono-red. Who knows? It really does depend, but I don't think it's nearly as much of a drawback as people think it is.
Right. I'm with you. I think the pros outweigh the cons with this.
Yeah. So, Slaying Fire, 2 in a red, instant. Slaying Fire deals 3 damage to any target. Adamant. If at least 3 mana was spent to cast this spell, it deals 4 damage instead. So this is interesting if we want to start talking a little bit about the adamant part of it, is that if you're going to play this instantly on turn 3, you don't really need the adamant part of it, because most creatures that your opponent is going to drop just don't have any more than 3 damage, 3 toughness, right? Again, this is why 4 toughness is so important, is that for the most part, like, you're not going to have anybody with with big butts in the set.
Right.
So 3 damage, it's going to survive. So, but if you are on the aggressive side, if you're the one casting Slaying Fire, there's not a lot of creatures with more than 3 toughness, and you don't really need to adamant it.
Yeah. If you do adamant it only goes, I think you hit an additional 23 creatures.
Right.
So it goes from hitting 96 creatures to hitting 119 creatures.
Right.
Which is a lot. It's most of the creatures in the set.
Right.
But
they don't come out until later in the game.
Right.
And at that point, you also have a better chance of getting the necessary mountains and the lands to pay for the adamant part of it.
Yeah, exactly. Next, we have Flaxen Intruder and Welcome Home. So Welcome Home is the adventure part. 5 green, create 3 2/2 bear green creature tokens at sorcery speed. But the important thing is Flaxen Intruder. It's a single green for 1/2, which is pretty good. But whenever she deals combat damage to a player, you may sacrifice it. If you do, you get to destroy target artifact or enchantment. This is conditional artifact and enchantment removal.
So I'm not quite sure about the Flaxen Intruder, at least the destruction part, right? Because early on in the game, you don't really, I can't really think of anything you would want to particularly destroy. Like maybe early equipment, but a lot of those take a little bit more, are going to be more than 1 or 2. Right. And then you're also down a creature. You have to sacrifice her in order to destroy it.
Yeah.
So, you're probably going to be using her for generating the bears.
Probably.
But even then, 7 mana for that. And then, so again, it's like, how do you get Flaxen Intruder to be useful and relevant in combat if you're casting her like turn 7?
Yeah.
Right after playing the bears. I mean, again, this is where equipment come into play.
Yep. For sure.
Again, we just got to harp on equipment, right?
They'll get the message.
Yeah.
Eventually.
Kenrith's Transformation for 1 in a green. Enchant creature. When Kenrith's transformation enters the battlefield, draw a card. Enchanted creature loses all abilities and is a green elk creature with base power toughness 3/3. So green has transmutation now? Like they have a Frogify?
It's a beast
Elkify.
within. Right?
Yeah.
But it just hits creatures, and 3 power, 3 toughness is still formidable, so you really have to be dropping something down.
Right. Although the drawing the card part is helpful. It does replace itself at least.
For sure.
And theoretically you can enchant your own creature, right?
You could enchant your own creature. So if you want to get something up into a 3/3. You
Yeah.
can totally do that.
You have a dinky little 1/1, token that's like, all right, cool, fine.
Yeah.
Good. Turn into a 3/3, draw a card.
Yeah. Draw a card, turn it into a 3/3, attack in.
Yeah.
Next we have Drown in the Loch.
I love this card.
I love this card too. So blue-black, instant, choose one. You can either counter target spell with converted mana costs less than or equal to the number of cards in its controller's graveyard, or destroy target creature with the same clause.
Yeah.
So as the game goes on, this gets more and more powerful.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, it's practically unconditional removal, which is fantastic.
But I also love mill, so I just play a lovely mill deck. It's just like, oh, there goes all your deck. And now I can either destroy a creature or, counter a spell. You basically just stop anything.
Yeah. No, this is a very flexible card, and I'm going to be really sad to run into it in standard, but in limited, getting to play with it's going to be really.
It's definitely more of a constructed card, but still, if you have it, I think it's going to be fun to use.
Yeah, for sure. So that's it for combat tricks. Next, I'm sorry, backwards.
That's it for removal.
That's it for removal. Now we're going to talk about combat tricks. That's why I had it on the brain.
Yep.
The first thing we're going to talk about is Shining Armor.
Mm-hmm.
So for 1 and a white, you get an artifact equipment. So it has flash. That's why we're putting it under the tricks. When it enters the battlefield, you get to automatically attach it to a target knight you control.
Yep.
Equipped creature gets +0/+2 and has vigilance.
Right.
So this is going to save a creature of yours from a trade.
Yep. Or removal spell, because a lot of the removal we had, again, the critical 4 toughness issue that we've had before, this might get you over the line.
Yep, for sure. And then otherwise, the equip is 3, which you can still flash it in, and then if it's your main phase or whatever, you can pay 3, but afterwards you can pay 3 to move it on to another creature. So.
Right. Which is a little bit expensive, and then also you don't get the benefit of vigilance because it's already tapped attacking.
Right.
But still, it's to save a creature.
Yeah. But just to be clear, you can't equip instant speed. You can only equip the knight.
Right.
At instant speed as it enters the battlefield.
Yep.
So next is the only uncommon combat trick.
Right. Righteousness. For 1 white, you get an instant target blocking creature gets +7/+7 until end of turn.
Yeah.
So I think combat is going to be interesting just because we're going to be very tactical about your combat and when you attack, unless you're a super aggro deck. So the +7/+7, I don't know how useful it would be because if you're attacking, you probably have some way of just avoiding people anyway and just not being blocked.
Right.
However, I was joking earlier, is righteousness and then fling.
Yep.
A righteous fling.
Get in for 10 or 11 or something. Just
it's cheap. It's 3 mana to just be able to say, hey, I block and sack and then end of turn just fling. It's cool.
Yeah. It's totally viable.
Yeah.
Next we have a Silver Flame Squire and On Alert. So Silver Flame Squire itself is 1 and a white for a 2/1, but the important thing here is the adventure. So On Alert is 2 and a white for an instant. Target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn, and you get to untap it.
Yep. So
if you've attacked in, you can untap it next turn to block out of nowhere, or you can just use the +2/+2 to save it from a removal spell or a bad trade.
Yep. Lash of Thorns. It's an instant for 1 single black. Target creature gets +2/+1 and gains Death Touch until end of turn. So you see this fairly often in black when we get a Death Touch instant trick. The weird part is it also pumps power and toughness.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like, do we use it to save a creature? Do we use it to get an extra damage? Like, you already have Death Touch, and it's not like it's giving you a bunch of toughness extra anyway. So
right.
A little bit of a, at odds with itself, but who knows?
Yeah, that is very true. The toughness pump does make it a little interesting. But I mean, it might just survive to fight another day.
Yep.
Next we have Barge In. For a single red, you get an instant. Target attacking creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. And then each attacking non-human creature gains trample until end of turn. We'll talk about the non-human synergies later.
Right. But it's interesting is that a lot of the larger creatures don't naturally have trample. So this might be useful if you get there.
For sure.
Rimrock Knight. 1 and a red. For a dwarf knight, it can't block and its base stats are 3/1. Very aggressively costed. What's interesting though, what's really cool, is its adventure. It's Boulder Rush. An instant for 1 red. Target creature gets +2/+0 until end of turn. I don't know, this is fantastic. This is great. There's a combat trick in the beginning, get some extra damage in, and then you get another very aggressive creature on the back end.
Yep.
I like it.
Now this little guy's great. Next we have Garen Brigg Carver. So for 3 and a green, you get a 3/2, but it has an adventure on it. Shield's Might. 1 and a green instant. Target creature gets +2/+2 till end of turn.
Mm-hmm. So similar to that Silver Flame Squire. Again, +2/+2. Instant, solid. What's interesting is, considering the prevalence of 2/3s I was talking about, right, they still get you pumped up in power to the critical 4 toughness that'll kill most things that'll block, that it's going to block, as well as pumping its toughness up to 5,
right?
Which, it'll help survive a lot of things. Same with 3/3s, right? It's just, a lot of this is going to be based on combat tricks, a lot of ways of augmenting your attacking creatures. So again, base stats on creatures are not impressive as they're going to come up the board.
Right.
So yeah, and then having the flexibility of having be both a creature at the back end as well as starting off as a pump spell will be super useful. A lot of value out of these creatures. But anyway, next combat trick we have is Insatiable Appetite. 1 in green for an instant. You may sacrifice a food. If you do, target creature gets +5/+5 until end of turn. Otherwise, that creature gets +3/+3 until end of turn. So Giant Growth-esque with the bonus if you have food. All right, that's fine. I mean, depends on how often you want to be running Giant Growth effects in your deck, but it's food synergies.
Yep. No, it's perfectly reasonable.
Yep.
The +5/+5 is really good. I think it'll close out games. Getting that in there.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, +3/+3 gets you above most creatures that you're going to be fighting anyway.
Yep.
So that's it for combat tricks. Seriously this time.
Yeah.
Now we're going to talk about a couple of the cycles in the set.
Right.
The first one, which we've kind of been harping on a little bit, is the equipment cycle. These things aren't common, so you're going to see a lot of these in draft.
Right.
And I mean, two of any given one of them in the set.
Yep.
Of cards that you're looking at.
Yep.
We talked about Shining Armor already, but we haven't talked about Mantle of Tides.
Right. So Mantle of Tides is 1 blue mana for an artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+2, and whenever you draw your second card each turn, attach Mantle of Tides to target creature you control. So blue and red have a really big theme of drawing extra cards, and whenever you draw your second card per turn. So it's a great way to instantly attach this onto a creature. So it's a great combat trick to already have it out, and then attacking, and then you have that option of saying, all right, where do I want to shove this? And it's going to make blocking really interesting for your opponent. So this is one of the little bits we're saying equipment is going to really matter in this set, in Limited, because not only is it going to boost your creatures to the stats in which they can actually attack profitably, but also you have a lot of options in order to make really difficult blocking decisions for your opponent.
Right, for sure. One of the ones that you're going to see a lot of, which it's really going to be interesting, is Giant Skewer. 1 in a black, equipped creature gets +2/+1, and whenever a equipped creature deals combat damage to another creature, create a food token.
Right. So this is a big one because green and black have a lot of food synergies. So this is going to be super interesting. You can either use this as a way to just attack in, because again, makes combat math, makes your creatures have the right stats in order to actually get through the damage, or you can leave it behind and just disincentivize people from attacking. Because you go ahead and it's like, if you're going to attack me, not only do I have a tough creature, but it also blocks.
Yeah.
It also be able to get some food token.
Yeah. Your opponent has to do an extra 3 damage to you to make the attack worth it.
Crystal Slipper, 1 in a red for artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+0 and has haste. Equip 1. So this is really interesting because I've always been trying to get this to work whenever I play for like Strider Harness, if you remember back in Ixalan. It's a similar thing where you just pay an extra mana and to give a creature haste.
Yeah.
Now this is +1/+0. Strider Harness was like +1/+1, but still, like, I feel like this is actually going to do a lot of work. I remember playing with cards like the Goblin Motivator or something, like, just tap and give a creature haste. Like, I feel like this is going to be more useful than you'd expect, especially in a very aggressive deck.
Yeah, for sure. And then finally, for this cycle, we have Rosethorn Halberd. For a single green, it enters the battlefield, or when it enters the battlefield, attach it to target non-human creature you control. Then equipped creature gets +2/+1.
+2/+1 is a real theme we're seeing a lot here.
Yeah.
Which again, like I said, I mentioned, like, you see a lot of 2/3s. It's like they're begging for the +2/+1 to make them square 4/4s.
Yeah.
Right. The big thing is that the equip cost is 5.
Yeah.
So this is super expensive. You pretty much aren't going to move this around when you first play it. So.
Right.
Yeah. And it's not even flash, which.
But it is also only 1.
Right.
So you can definitely play something and then play this as well, or play this play 2 cards in a turn with this. So it's not too awful.
Right. So now that we've gone through all the equipment, it's time to talk about Adamant, which is one of the big mechanics of this set. Now, Throne of Eldraine is incentivizing you to play heavily into one color, and Adamant is one of the little mechanics that sort of points you to that. So in most cases, Adamant just cares about how much of a specific single color of mana you spent to cast a spell.
Right.
And so we have a bunch of cycles in each of the mono colors where they have an Adamant clause. So starting off, we have Ardenvale Paladin, which is 3 and a white. However, the Adamant mechanic says if at least 3 white mana was spent to cast the spell, Ardenvale Paladin enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it. So you have all these paladins and knights that get a +1/+1 counter if you cast them with Adamant. Now, for the sake of Ardenvale Paladin, though, 4 mana, you get 2/5. So you already have a big butt. You can survive pretty much anything they're going to throw at you. So this is one of the spells that we say just doesn't really matter if you Adamant or not, but, it's fine. And once you get to 4 mana, if you're playing mono white, there's a good chance you're going to have it. Now, if we want to look a little bit on the math over there, I'm referring specifically on Channel Fireball, you'll find an article where it says the number of how many colored mana sources do you need to consistently cast your spells, and trying to adapt that to what we have here. So if you have a 4 mana with 3 of the same color, if you want to consistently cast that by around like 90-something%, you're going to need to be running 13-ish lands of that color. Right. So again, because Ardenvale Paladin doesn't really matter so much, and if you give it a little bit of chance to say a little bit less, not like 90%, because this is limited, you're still talking about if you want an Adamant, if you want to consistently cast your Adamant spells, you're going to need about 10 to 11 of that particular color.
Right.
In order to be consistently able to use 3 mana of a particular color by either 3-drop or 4-drop.
Yeah. And in a 2-color deck, that's a lot. Right.
You're pretty heavy, yeah.
That's pretty heavy. I think, and we'll talk about this in a minute, but red is really where you're going to be wanting that Adamant. Blue a little bit, but definitely red.
Right.
So speaking of blue, we have Vantress Paladin, so 3 and a blue for a 2/2 flyer, but like the entire Paladin cycle, it enters the battlefield with a 1/1 counter if 3 of its colored mana was spent to cast it.
Yeah.
So 3/3 flyer for 4 is great.
Yeah.
It's great in the set.
Right. 2/2, a little bit less so. So this is one of the cards where you definitely want to try to hit Adamant with, but yeah, you'll see the other ones, it could vary. For example, Lochthwain Paladin, which is a 3 and a black with Menace for a 3/2. And again, Adamant comes in with a +1/+1 counter. For me, 4 mana, 3/2 Menace, that's pretty solid. I'm perfectly okay with that.
Yeah.
So, sure, yes, no, doesn't really matter, but if you can Adamant it, that's a 4/3 Menace. That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's a pretty serious clock.
Yep.
Another pretty serious clock, and that kind of comes out of nowhere, is Embereth Paladin. So for 3 and a red, you get a 4/1 with haste, or if you Adamant it, it's 5/2.
Right.
Which, it's basically a lava axe, right, or like a kill spell.
Right. So for just 4 mana regularly without Adamant, you hit that break point where you have 4 attack. So if they're going to block with it, you're just going to be taking out anything. Pretty much. It's going to be pretty rare that somebody's going to be able to block this profitably.
Right. So
this is one of those spells where, yeah, you could go either way. I'm perfectly okay with casting this without Adamant and just going in there, swinging in for 4. They trade, but otherwise, I've already gotten my value out of it.
Right, for sure.
The green Paladin is Garenbrig Paladin, so 4 and a green, so this one's 5 mana instead for a Giant Knight. Adamant, if at least 3 green mana was cast to spend the spell, used to spend this. Wow. If at least 3 green mana was spent to cast this spell.
Got there.
Garenbrig Paladin enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it. So that's 5 mana for a 5/5, and Garenbrig Paladin can't be blocked by a creature with power 2 or less.
Yeah. And then it has that clause whether or not you get to Adamant it.
Right. So, big beefy guy, green gets the big creatures, beat sticks. It's a Giant Knight, so non-human interactions in there. So, yeah, by all means, swing in with this guy. 5 mana, 4/4, can't be blocked. I mean, that's pretty reasonable already. But 5/5, sure.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
We're going to give an honorable mention to Hengewalker.
Yep.
He's not a knight, but it's 3 mana of any color for a 2/2.
Yep.
It's an artifact creature.
Yep.
But Adamant enters with a 1/1 counter. So 3 mana, of one color, you get a 3/3.
Yeah. So when you think about it, 3 mana 2/2 is pretty standard when it comes to colorless creatures in
Yeah.
sets, right? They give you a little bit of tax for the flexibility. However, if you do have Adamant, it's great. It gets a 3/3 for 3, right on curve, right where you want it to be. So it's great. And a lot of times you find a lot of these colorless cards are there to just fill in because you really want to go, gives you the flexibility if you're trying to go really hard into a single color. Like it doesn't mess you up too badly if you don't have the density of the colors and you still have playable creatures.
Right.
Yep. So Silver Flame Ritual. So now we're getting to this other cycle of spells that care about Adamant.
Yeah.
Starting off with a white Silver Flame Ritual, 3 and a white. Put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Adamant. If at least 3 white mana was spent to cast this spell, creatures you control gain vigilance until end of turn. Now, white does have a go wide theme going out throughout. It creates a lot of tokens, whether it's human tokens, night tokens. Those two predominantly, but if you mix in with a couple of other colors, you might have other ones. But those are the big ones. And we mentioned previously, there's not a lot of board wipe
Right.
in the set. So if you create a lot of creatures, they're going to stick. So when you put +1/+1 counters on them, that's even better.
Yeah.
So I might not be too hot on trying to cast this for Adamant, but putting +1/+1 counters on each creature you control, I feel like is going to be a little bit stronger than you'd expect.
Yeah, for real, especially as the game goes on. And just for clarity, there are 2 cycles of spells here. There's one at common and one at uncommon.
Right. Okay.
So the blue common one is 4 and a blue for Unexplained Visions. It's a sorcery that lets you draw 3 cards. But if you cast it with 3 blue mana, you get to scry 3 after you draw 3 cards, which kind of feels bad.
I don't know.
But you get to look at 6 cards.
Yeah, I think I'd rather prefer that because I just grab the 3 cards and I'd rather set up my future draws than set up my current draws because it's 5 mana. At that point, you're not going to be doing anything else for the rest of the turn.
I guess that's true.
Right. So I don't mind. Foreboding Fruit, 2 and a black, sorcery. Target player draws 2 cards and loses 2 life. Adamant. If at least 3 black mana was spent to cast this spell, create a food token. So 3 mana, draw. This is a draw 2, lose 2. You see this a lot, but you get the food, which helps you gain back the life. You're up 1 life. That's the case. However, this is another one of those instances where if you want to consistently get Adamant on turn 3, you're going to need to run a lot of black. In this case, it's something it's like 14-ish lands. But it's one of those things where, like, does it really matter this early in the game? Maybe not.
No,
right?
I mean, it's fine by itself.
It's
and
fine by itself.
You'll see that a lot with the Adamant stuff, is that it's just attacked on bonus. Right?
Like, you don't necessarily care about it if to cast it on curve for its Adamant ability.
Right. We already talked a bit about Searing Barrage back in the removal section.
Yep.
But 4 and a red, instant, deals 5 damage to target creature.
Adamant. Splashable kind of thing.
Yeah.
I consider because however much you can splash.
Yeah. In the set, that's true. Adamant deals 3 damage to that creature's controller. Yeah, we already talked about it, and we also talked about Outmuscle.
Yep.
For 3 and a green, you get a sorcery, you put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control, then it fights a creature you don't control. So then Adamant, if you spend 3 green mana for this, your creature gains indestructible till end of turn.
Okay, so now we have in the uncommon cycle. So now there's Rally for the Throne in white for 2 and a white. Instant, create 2 1/1 white human creature tokens. So here we go. We get the token making. Adamant, if at least 3 white mana was spent to cast this spell, you gain 1 life for each creature you control. So again, this is a 3 mana Adamant spell, so it means you need 3 white mana. If you want to cast this consistently on turn 3, again, it's like 16-ish or 14 or whatever it is, planes, but you're only going to be gaining 2 life. So maybe not worth it. Later on in the game,
if these are your only creatures, you're only getting 2 life.
Which probably isn't exactly worth it. So, but later on in the game, sure, why not? If you manage to Adamant it, by all means, it's gravy.
Yeah, and this actually curves into the white or the common one really well.
Yeah,
because that's 4.
Right.
So the next one for blue is Turn into a Pumpkin. 3 and a blue, instant, return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand, draw a card, and then if you use at least 3 blue mana to cast it, you get a food.
Right.
Which is good.
It's fine. I mean, it's a little bit expensive in terms of just the bounce spell, but you do get the draw card.
Yeah.
So this is effectively, I think,
Blink of an eye?
Blink of an eye, yeah.
Blink of an eye.
Kicker blink of an eye.
Yeah.
And if you manage to get all that extra blue, then all right, cool, you got a food token. Which, granted, is relevant in the fairies archetype because they care about artifacts. So it's nice to have an incidental way to create food.
Mm-hmm.
Slaying Fire, 2 and a red. Slaying Fire deals 3 damage to any target. Now, we've talked about this before. 3 damage at turn 3, it's going to basically kill anything your opponent's going to put out on the board at that time. So, the adamant doesn't really matter. But once you get later on in the game where adamant does matter, all right, cool. I think it's super flexible, super useful.
Yeah, this card is very flexible. I guess we did this out of order. Whoops. Cauldron's Gift is the black one.
Yep.
Uncommon. So 4 and a black, sorcery. Now, this one's interesting because the adamant comes first.
Right.
If at least 3 black mana was spent to cast a spell, you put the top 4 cards of your library into your graveyard. Because once you do that, you may choose a creature card in your graveyard. If you do, return it to the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it.
Right. So in comparison to reanimate effects, I'm thinking, because I put on reanimate section in the cube, a lot of the ones that are 6 mana are reanimate from either graveyard. And then once you get to your own graveyard, usually I've seen like 4 mana ones. I'm thinking of like Vigor Mortis, which is the most similar card to this, which is 2 black, and if green was spent to cast the spell, you bring it back with a +1/+1 counter. So this one doesn't require any green in there, and also it's single black instead of black. So a little bit more expensive. However, the self-mill part may be relevant.
Yeah, and just a note, it's not a May. So you have to be careful if you care about what's on top. Like if you just scry something to the top that isn't a creature,
right?
You have to be careful about how you're tapping.
So then we have Once and Future for 3 and a green. Return target card, just any card, from your graveyard to your hand. Put up to 1 other target card from your graveyard on top of your library. Exile Once and Future. And then Adamant, if at least 3 green mana was spent to cast the spell, instead return those cards to your hand and exile Once and Future. So the 4 mana Adamant part, there's no real point to try to cast this on curve on turn 4.
Right.
But this is a great graveyard recursion. If you can Adamant it, by all means, it's 2 cards back to your hand. It's great. And in green too. Yeah,
and to be honest, this one, I think it matters the least if you're doing it because it's an instant. If it was a sorcery, you definitely would want to adamant it. But because it's an instant, you can do this on your opponent's end step, and then you just draw the card that you put on top of your library. Anyway. Right.
But still, adamant. I mean, you're just up a card anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
No, that's true.
It's great.
So that was it for the adamant stuff. We're going to talk about the knights real quick.
Yeah. One last cycle, at least common and uncommon stuff. Because there's always the mythic cycles and all that other jazz, which, a little bit out of scope. They're all bombs, effectively.
Yeah, basically.
You don't really need to say much about that. Sir Alan, the Lion's Claw, legendary creature, human knight for 3 white. First strike. Whenever Sir Alan, the Lion's Claw attacks, other creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. So again, white goes wide. You have this. You have the Silver Flame Ritual, right? You have like the emergency provisions. Granted, you also have the round table, whatever the actual Silver Flame stuff, and a lot of different ways to just go wide and pumps your stuff up. Yeah. And then Sir Alan comes in. It's just and there's not a lot of ways to wipe him. So,
Yeah, and also he's a 4/4 body with first strike.
Right.
So he blocks really well if you're on the defensive.
Right.
Next you have Sir Eleonora, the Discerning. So 3 blue for an X4. Sir Eleonora, the Discerning's power is equal to the number of cards in your hand, and when she enters the battlefield, you get a draw card. And then, spells your opponents cast that target her cost 2 more to cast.
Right.
So she's harder to remove, and she can get kind of big. We saw her a bit in the pre-release.
Yeah.
If you guys watched Loading Ready Run's pre-release, she usually came down as a 3/4 and then drew herself into a 4/4.
Right.
Which is fine. Like 5 mana, here's an X4, draw me a card. I would play that any day.
I mean, blue has a lot of cards that care about cards in hand, and so that's fine. Like she replaces herself. It's great.
Yeah, and she draws you that second card that turn.
Yep.
If that's the deck that you're in.
Yep.
Which we'll be talking about that deck later.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. I'm excited about that deck.
Yeah, me too.
Sir Conrad the Grim. So 3 black, legendary creature, human knight, of course. Whenever another creature dies, or a creature card is put into a graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, or a creature card leaves your graveyard, Sir Conrad the Grim deals 1 damage to each opponent. So basically, whenever a creature goes into the graveyard, right, or a creature leaves the graveyard, deals 1 damage to each opponent. 1 in a black, each player puts the top card of their library into their graveyard. So effectively, whenever any shenanigans happens with creatures, this guy gets angry.
Yeah.
So if you got any kind of graveyard synergies at all, this guy's awesome. He's going to get you a lot of value. And he's a 5/4.
Yeah.
5/4 for 5. I mean, solid body. Again, the critical 4 toughness gets there, but he's a big beat stick too if you need to take out stuff.
Yeah, and he's also one of the only ways to repeatably mill in the set.
Yep.
So if you're in the blue-black deck, you're going to really want to keep an eye out for this guy.
Yep.
Sarah Kara the Bold, she is the red knight. So 3 red for a legendary human knight for a 3/3. And I really like this effect. This effect's really cool. Whenever Sir Kara the Bold, or an instant or sorcery spell you control deals damage to a player, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. And she has a tap ability where she deals 1 damage to any target.
Yeah. So great. She can go right ahead and ping you for that. And in which case you exile another burn spell. In which case you cast that, and it triggers again, and you just keep on going. I feel like this is going to get busted real fast.
For sure.
Sir Farron, the Henge Hammer. Green for a 2/2. Legendary human knight. Whenever Sir Farron the Henge Hammer attacks, another target attacking creature gets +X until end of turn, where X is Sir Farron's power. So already base 2/2 makes something else, another +2/+2, really good. But again, equipment.
Every time.
If you throw equipment on this guy, he is going to get busted.
For sure. There's also there's an aura that pumps your power and toughness in green.
Yeah.
The beanstalk thing.
Yeah.
So
they turn into a giant.
Turn into yeah.
Whatever.
So that definitely will make him much bigger and much more valuable.
I mean, there's so many ways to give at least +2 power on this. So
Yeah.
then you guess anything else is you just doubled up your pump spells. It's a +4/+4.
Yeah.
It's gonna be busted.
It's gonna be pretty silly. I think this guy's gonna die very early on.
Yeah, this is a must answer kind of deal.
Yeah, for sure. And so that's it for tricks.
Right.
No, that was it for cycles. I've done this 3 times.
Yeah.
For just like we're done with tricks. We're really done with tricks, and we're so done with tricks that we moved into cycles, and then we're done with cycles.
Yep.
And so now we're going to talk about a bunch of the limited archetypes.
Yeah.
So we were discussing this earlier, and kind of with Adamant, you're going to get like pushed into 2 colors tops, right? For the most part, the strategies really lend themselves to 2 colors, and then if you want to do Adamant, you're like 1 color with a splash essentially.
Right.
That said, there are still some signposts and comments to guide you in the direction of the 2 color synergies.
Yep.
So I know we just said 2 colors,
Right.
but
Knights
exist as a 3 color tribe,
Right.
with like 3 different sub-themes. So it's Mardu Knights, and then you can play any combination of the 2.
Right.
Of the 2 colors.
Yep.
2 of the 3 colors.
Yep.
So let's talk about a couple of the signposts and comments. This one I know you're excited about.
Yeah. Steel Claw Lance. Equipment! Yep.
Drink every time Lou gets excited about equipment.
It is black and red, and equipped creature gets +2/+2. That's just it. However, it only takes 1 mana to equip it onto a knight versus 3 for anybody else.
Yeah.
So +2/+2, again, very relevant because you want to pump your guys up. You want to make it so that they can charge in and attack for value. Well, profitably. But what's interesting is that particularly in red and black, like in black at the very least, there's a lot of ways to recur your knights.
Yep.
So it doesn't particularly matter if it's not always profitable. I mean, some of them might be a little bit squishy, but you go in there, kill something, whatever. It's fine.
Yep.
It's fine.
So still in the knights, we have the Inspiring Veteran. It's red-white for a 2/2. Other knights you control get +1/+1.
So white obviously being the go wide color in here, you have a go wide knight.
Yep. And then we have another one of the 2 color pairs, Wintermoor Commander. This is a 2-star death touch. Toughness is equal to the number of knights you control. So there's like you were saying, that the go wide strategy in white. And whenever it attacks, another target knight you control gains indestructible until end of turn.
Right. So this works nicely for black. There's a lot more suicidal creatures in black. If you have white in there, it makes it so they're slightly less suicidal.
Yep. That is true.
And of course, the one multicolor land in this entire set, Tournament Grounds, tap, add colorless, or you tap it to add one of the Mardu colors, spend this mana only to cast a knight or equipment spell.
Yeah.
All right.
Which is pretty cool that it is knight or equipment and not just knight.
Yep.
So onto the creatures that you kind of want to look out for. Bell of the Brawl is really good. So this is one of the cards that pumps other knights, especially when it attacks.
Right.
And there's a couple of these. There's at least one in each color, I think.
Yeah.
So Bell the Brawl, 2 and a black for a 3/2, which is an important power level, and then Menace, and then whenever she attacks, other knights you control get +1/+0.
Yep. So this is great, especially if you have the go wide knights. This is fantastic. Otherwise, Menace makes it hard to block. Really easy, nice to have it early on, and if you can keep the number of opposing creatures down with all of your black kill spells, it's great. She's going to do a lot of work.
Yep.
Next up is Order of Midnight. So this is another really fantastic card. Super excited, especially if you're going to talking about how knights, they don't really care if they die, right? So this is a card with adventure, and it is a human knight that rides a really awesome raven. Its adventure is Alter Fate. For 1 and a black, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Fine, yeah, I mean, like...
It's a fine sorcery.
Sweet. But, 2 mana, it's a 1 and a black for just a flying. Order of Midnight can't block for a 2/2 flyer. That's great as well.
Yep.
I mean, this is one of the cases where this is great early, this is great late. Sure, like, this is a fantastic pickup.
Yep. Especially if it's turn 4 and this is your 4 mana cast. Recur something, get a 2/2 flyer.
Yep.
It's pretty good.
Yep.
Next we have Burning Yard Trainer, which is a fantastic card.
Yeah.
So 4 and a red for a 3/3 with Trample and Haste, which there's not a lot of static trample in the set.
Mm-hmm.
And when it enters the battlefield, another target knight you control gets +2/+0 and gains Trample and Haste until end of turn.
Right. So given it's a little expensive, so it's not likely you're going to be putting it out with another knight out there to have it be able to attack, but just giving it Trample in and of itself, it's great.
And the +2/+2.
Yeah, and the +2/+2. So it's just all right, cool. Like we're rumbling.
Yep.
Ardenvale Paladin, we've seen this one before. It's the white knight with the adamant, great big butt. I'm sure it'll be a lot more useful if you throw some equipment on there, make it hit a little bit harder. But yeah, it really depends whether it's on offense or defense.
Yep. Have we talked about Ardenvale Tactician yet?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
This is definitely one that's going to be doing a lot of work, and it's a common too.
Yeah, this is a great common. It's going to slot into a lot of decks, and I think we mentioned it like 3 or 4 times in these archetypes. But Ardenvale Tactician and Dizzying Swoop. So Ardenvale Tactician for 1 white, you get a 2/3 flyer, which is pretty good.
Right, but again, we've seen a lot of 2/3s in here.
Yep. And then Dizzying Swoop, the adventure. So 1 and a white, instant, tap up to 2 target creatures.
Yeah.
So you can do this end step.
Yeah, great. End step on your opponent, just poof.
Yeah, you can do it defensively to keep them from attacking.
Yep.
There's a bunch of stuff you can do with this.
Yeah.
This is going to be great at common. You're going to want as many of these in your deck if you're in white.
Yeah. Youthful Knight, 1 and a white, first strike for a 2/1. So unlike a lot of other cases, you have first strike all the time, right? So there's naturally not a lot of first strike in the set, and also there's not really any ways in equipment to give you first strike. So load this guy up. This knight is going to be doing a lot of work. If you can pump its power, it's going to hurt.
Yeah, and that's actually really interesting, like from a Magic history standpoint, because knights typically have first strike.
Right.
But not here. There's only 3.
Well, a couple of the legendary knights. Yeah. So there's the guy Sir Alan.
Yeah.
Is that it? And then
the 4/4 with first strike, and then
this
guy, and I think there's something else. There's the 1/2 red cap.
Yeah, double strike.
That has double strike.
Ember Flame, or the Excalibur equivalent, also gives you double strike.
Right. So I guess you can take this one.
Oh yeah, sure. Lost Legion for a 1 black. When Lost Legion enters the battlefield, scry 2. So it's funny to see a big scry 2 on black, right? But then it's a 2/3. So again, this is an instance where it's like normally you see like in limited formats, 3 mana is going to get you a 3/2. We're getting a lot of 2/3s here. So it's going to be able to block a lot of the 3/2s, which we often see now at 4 mana these days. So this guy can trade up. And then comes into play, does its thing already, scry 2, just hold it up on defense, trade it out, whatever. You blanked an attack, fine. Comes up the board. It's cards like this that really make me think that this is going to be a very slow, grindy on the ground thing, unless you have equipment. Again.
Yep.
Unless you have equipment.
Next is something that will help your knights get through as well, and this is at common.
Right, and this is actually one that's a little bit above curve too. So this is. But again, you still notice that this is a Ogre Errant, 4 mana, 3 and a red. But the thing is, again, 4 mana, it's a 3/4. Again, its toughness is higher than its attack.
Yep. And whenever it attacks, another target attacking knight gains menace until end of turn.
It's all about this combat tricks going on with knights. They have to boost each other up, pump each other up, because otherwise, just base stats alone might not really make it.
Yeah, base stats alone, you're just kind of getting stuck on the ground.
Yeah.
Jousting Dummy is an interesting one.
Right.
I really like it. It's inefficient, but it's inefficient because it's colorless.
Right.
So Jousting Dummy 2, for 2/1, and then 3 mana of any color,
Right.
or combination of colors.
Right.
Casting dummy gets +1/+0 till end of turn.
Right. So, I mean, this thing's not going to last very long, but again, the 2 power is going to blank a lot of the funky 3/2s out there. And you can even just for another 3 mana, again, it'll be able to profitably block anything that's 3 mana, 3 toughness. Elite Headhunter. So this we're getting into the cycle of the hybrid cards. So I guess that's one of the cycles we haven't really talked about too much, but this is an interesting one, which is the black-red hybrid uncommon knight. It's got Menace, 4 mana for a 2/3. Again, we're seeing that 2/3 stat line again. Menace, and then for 3 of hybrid black-red, 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 sacrifice another creature or artifact. Elite Headhunter deals 2 damage to target creature or planeswalker. So this is an interesting one because we've seen so far that a lot of the burn damage goes to 3 instead of 2. So it's a little bit interesting. So this might not be something to kill with. However, what I'm thinking and imagining this will be helpful is you got a lot of food that you can sacrifice. Something you can do. Creature, maybe depending on whatever archetype you're playing, there's a chance you might have some leftover creatures that can't really do anything anymore. But the 2 damage, the fact that it's not going to kill the creature makes me think this is going to be more of a threatening kind of deal, where like, hey, you don't block, or else I'm just going to eat a food and just blow something up.
Right. And this, because of the mana cost, you're not really going to be running this if you're in the Mardu deck.
Right.
It's going to be really tough to cast. If you're able to secure a tournament ground, maybe.
Yeah.
Because you'll be able to cast this a lot easier.
Right.
And cast the rest of your spells easier. But otherwise, these hybrid cards you're probably going to want to stay away from unless you're moving more into the 2-color Knight archetypes.
Yeah. If you're playing red-black Rakdos in here, this is easy turn 4 drop. That's fine. If you're playing any other combination like red-blue, even if you're predominantly red, it's a lot iffier in that case.
Yeah, we did the math on this.
Yeah.
And I think it was like 11% chance turn 4.
Well, this is the worst case scenario. If red or black is your splash color, right? You have like a 10% chance of hitting it, even like turn 4, but like less. It's still not great. Right, you definitely have to be. It's iffy if you're only on one of the colors and it's your main color. It's iffy. It has to be the case where you are in both of these colors.
Right.
And it's still like that one. There's something about it I just don't really know. This is the one that least impresses me out of the hybrid cycle.
Yeah. Okay, I can agree with that. So to continue on with the hybrid cycle, we have Resolute Rider. So 4 Orzhov. So Orzhov.
Say that 5 times fast, right?
Yeah, right. You get a 4/2, and it has 2 activated abilities, which are really cool. So Orzhov. Resolute Rider gains lifelink till end of turn.
Yep.
Or possibly Orzhov. Resolute Rider gains indestructible till end of turn.
So this is what I'm talking about when you do white and black together, you get really annoying things. So for example, in the previous one we talked about the white-black knight makes a knight that you control indestructible. So you can just go in and rumble however you want. Similar to this, curves in beautifully, start with turn 4, play this. Turn 5, you can activate both of its abilities.
Yep.
You send it in there, and if they decide to block it, it's 4 power, which means it'll probably kill whatever it fights with. Right, even by itself. In which case, give it indestructible, it survives and it attacks profitably. Or if they decide not to block it, they'll go ahead or even if they do, give it lifelink. Bam, you're just up 4 life too. It's an 8-point life swing.
Yep.
Like this guy, this is the kind of stuff I'm talking about where I'm super excited. Where it's like a lot of interesting choices to make in combat.
For sure.
Yep. Versus the final one out of the Mardu hybrid cards is Fireborn Knight. This is the Boros one. Boros. A double strike for 2/3. Again, we're seeing that 2/3 stat line. However, it does have double strike. What's interesting is that if you go Boros, again, it's Fireborn Knight gets +1/+1 till end of turn. So almost like a shade effect, where you pay for itself again, and it gives it +1/+1. Given double strike, that means a lot because you just double. It's actually more like a +2 damage. It's definitely possible. I have a hard time evaluating this just because in the red-white color pair, you see a lot more. I feel like there's going to be a lot more benefit to running artifacts and equipment on here. So it's going to love being equipped. So I don't really know. Maybe it's just a bonus. It's just a bonus in case it's a backup plan, right?
Yeah.
If you don't have your equipment, you would have those 4. You can pump it up just in case to give it whatever it needs to punch through damage.
Yeah. That's true. And then you can also use this defensively, but that's probably not going to come up too much.
Right.
So now we're going to talk a little bit about a couple of cards that aren't knights but interact with knights.
Right.
So Barrow Witches. 4 and a black for a 3/4, which the uneven toughness.
Right.
When Barrow Witches enters the battlefield, return target knight card from your graveyard to your hand.
Yeah. So as I was mentioning in black, you can send people in. You go right ahead. Black. The value of the black card is persistence. Right, so those guys can just go in there. Yeah, they're gonna keep coming back. You're just gonna bring guys in. You swing in there. Black's got a couple of different knights that can swing in. That'll do work, right? So you have the what is it? The Orzhov Knight we had was a 4/2. You have the Skeleton Knight coming up. That's a 4/2. There's a 4/1 Knight in there as well. Like there's also the 4/1 Red Knight. So if you're playing Rakdos, this works. Just go in there, swing in. Maybe a little unprofitable, but if you're using equipment, like it's not like you lose the equipment when they die.
Right.
Right? So you just keep on bringing back knights over and over again. Bring your best knight back.
Yep.
It's great.
Yeah, no, it's real good.
Yep. Then we got the best siege equipment, of course, the Brimstone Trebuchet for 2 and a red. We've noticed, I was actually chatting with Clay previously, he was mentioning he had the Soldiers deck commander for Darien, and he has a lot of catapults in there for soldiers. Knights, obviously being the better white class, also gets the better siege equipment.
Lou is a moderator of our Trebuchet memes.
No, I'm not. I'm just quoting Cameron from the free release.
Yeah,
I'm just aware of it. But yes, the Trebuchet, Trebucket, whatever. Defender reach for 1/3 again for 2 and a red. Artifact creature wall. Tap Brimstone Trebuchet deals 1 damage to each opponent, and then when a knight enters the battlefield under your control, untap Brimstone Trebuchet. So yeah, the way we saw it at the loading ready run is just like, all right, cool. You tap it for 1 damage, play a knight on turn 4, boom, it untaps. The block, end of turn, just tap and just ping, ping, ping. It's inevitability, right? When the board gets gummed up, this probably is going to be a little bit to help.
It's probably the reason.
Yeah.
Reach. There's not a lot of things with reach, so like it having reach is really, really crucial.
Right. Reach in red too, interestingly enough.
Yeah, reach has been secondary in red tertiary in red since Origins.
We haven't seen it in a while. There's like two cards at least now.
Yeah.
Because there's this and there's Robin Hood.
Mm-hmm.
That at least have reach.
Yeah. So that's kind of it for the knights. Real quick, if you don't get to run 3 colors,
right,
you want to look at the 2-color signposts.
Yeah.
And kind of move into those strategies. So red white is cheap and efficient creatures.
Right.
If you can pick up red's really, really good removal, that's kind of what you're looking for.
Yep.
Black red is more focused on equipments and a bit of knight recursion, but it's more knight tribal than it is than the other two combinations are.
Yeah.
And then white black is a bit more control-y, a bit more grindy.
Yep.
So those are the kind of general strategies you want to go into. So that was it for combat tricks. No, I'm not doing that again. That's it for knights. So we're going to talk about the rest of the 2-color pairs.
Yep.
The first of which you'll kind of see pretty blatantly is white blue artifacts and enchantments matter.
Yeah. So you want to. It's really interesting because white does really well with the enchantments because it has all the kind of team buffs kind of deal. It has all of its control, removal, that kind of stuff. And then artifacts, you can either do either the equipment or food. Food counts as an artifact.
Yep.
So there's a lot of incidental stuff that you're just going to get it because the thing is, right now in this case with the blue-white archetype, is that they just care about it's just yes/no binary. Like, do you have an artifact? Do you have an equipment? Do you have an enchantment? For the most part. And the particular example, the great example right here is Shine Chaser.
Yep.
It's the 1 white blue. It is a fairy with flying and vigilance, which is pretty sweet keywords already. But it gets +1/+1 as long as you control an artifact, and it also gets +1/+1 as long as you control enchantment. So if you manage to come out there with the fortified rations or whatever it is, it's the enchantment in white that gives you your creatures +0/+1 and gives you a food token immediately. This guy just turns it on, and it's just a fantastic.
And suddenly it's a 3/4.
Yeah, but still, just a 3/3 flying vigilance if you manage to have it for 3 is pretty fantastic.
Right. The other signpost is Arcanist Owl. So Azorius for a 3/3 flyer, which is great.
Yeah.
Like in this set, that is a fantastic rate. When it enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal an artifact or enchantment card from among them, put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order.
Yep.
So this helps you go find whatever you're looking for.
It's already an artifact, so it counts for 1/2 of that.
Yep. You can find another Arcanist Owl. That's true. And then you can also find a removal spell, right? Like if you're looking for the glass casket or whatever, you'll be able to dig down for that.
Yep. Archon of Absolution for 3 and a white is a flying protection from white. So it's one of those hate cards that we have in the set. There's a cycle of like hate your own self colors in here. But it's flying, protection from white, and creatures can attack you or a planeswalker you control unless the controller pays 1 for each of those creatures, and it's 3/2. So it's just Ghostly Prison. So
yeah,
I mean, it's fine, solid, right? But flying is the important part here because, there's not a lot of ways to give creatures flying. So if you manage to just grab all the flying creatures, this is more draft than anything else. But if you manage to just draft a flyers deck, it's going to be hard to deal with.
Yeah, for sure. Next is our good friend, the Ardenvale Tactician, which we talked about earlier, but the controlling aspect of being able to tap 2 creatures on your opponent's end step or defensively is important, as well as having a 2/3 body in the air.
And if you got a flyers deck, though, you just tap down their attackers, though, and in that case, it helps swing the race numbers in your favor.
For sure.
Oh, Flutterfox. Now this one's fun. 1 and a white. As long as you control an artifact or enchantment, Flutterfox has flying. So again, this is a thing where all it just cares about is do you have it or not.
Yeah.
Right? In which case, it's a 2/2 flyer for 2. Like, yeah, that's pretty damn good.
Yep. Next, we have Animating Fairy, which is interesting. So it's 2 and a blue for a 2/2 flyer, which perfectly fine on its own, but it also has an adventure on it. Bring to life, 2 and a blue for a sorcery. Target non-creature artifact you control becomes a 0/0 artifact creature, but 4 1/1 counters on it.
So I'm just thinking animate food.
Yep.
Right? Like this is a good chance to just make food and then turn it into a beat stick. I beat you with my pie.
Yeah. I mean, 3 mana, 4/4. I would play that.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Soul artifact, right?
Those were the days. I loved my Insolnithopter deck. I terrorized our kitchen table when we started playing Magic with them. All right. So what's this card?
Moonlit Scavenger. So 5 and a blue is a Merfolk Rogue. When Moonlit Scavengers enters the battlefield, if you control an artifact or enchantment, again, just if you have it or not, return target creature an opponent controls to its owner's hand, and it's a big chunky 4/5 right over there.
Yeah.
So big butt. Not going to be easy to take out, and you just go in there and you bounce. Great big tempo swing, and hold the line, or just go in there and rumble.
Yep. And, I mean, it's 6 mana seems like a lot, but in this set, 4/5 is a lot.
Right. Yeah. Right. This, for the stat line, it's just one of those things where, like in green, the typical 7 mana for a giant 7/7 kind of deal. Like, all right, fine, it doesn't have trample, no big deal. Just keep on swinging in every turn. Just in a limited format, basically, do you have a chump blocker every turn?
Right.
And eventually you'll blank.
Yep. The next card here is Queen of Ice / Rage of Winter.
Super. I really love this card.
I am surprised that this card is at common, because I really love the power level of it.
Yeah.
So Queen of Ice herself, she is a 2 and a blue for a 2/3 Human Noble Wizard.
And 3 mana 2/3s. We're seeing this everywhere.
Yep. Whenever she deals combat damage to a creature, tap that creature. It doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. So if she hits something, you Frostlinks it.
Yep.
But she comes with an adventure, Rage of Winter, 1 and a blue, Frostlinks a creature. Right?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, freeze a dude.
Yeah. So, just so much tempo advantage on this one. You just go in there, tap somebody down. Next turn is another wall. You can literally lock down somebody for like 3 or 4 turns.
Yep.
It's great. Clockwork Servant. So this is one of the cards that would be really helpful in this deck, which is 3 mana 2/3 artifact creature. Adamant, when Clockwork Servant enters the battlefield, if at least 3 mana of the same color was spent to cast it, draw a card. So 3 mana 2/3. Again, we're seeing this everywhere.
Yep.
But the great thing is that this guy replaces itself and also is colorless. It'll slot into any deck you want. Probably this blue-white fairies artifact enchantment matters theme deck is probably a really good place to put it, but you could easily play this anywhere. A lot of these colorless cards in this set are really good by themselves, and they work really well just as a way to fill out your deck in case you're just really don't have a very exciting pool or ones that are just spread out everywhere,
Right.
and you just need to fill stuff out, I'm really, really impressed at how helpful the colorless cards are to
Yeah.
help fill in your deck.
Yeah, and this next one is one that I'm really excited about. Crashing Drawbridge.
Yep.
2 mana for an 0/4, which blocks
Pretty much everything.
pretty much everything.
Yep.
It's a defender, and which means it gets hit by that one that one
The
red
wall,
spell.
yeah.
Blow your house down.
Yeah,
That's what it
the
is.
wall, right.
But it also has tap creatures you control gain haste.
Lower
until
the
end of turn.
drawbridge.
Yeah.
Literally, it's great. I love the flavor on this.
Yeah, no, it's real good. This card, I mean, like late game, you cast a big bomb, especially in the air.
Yep.
You just tap it and you get in for 4 or whatever
Right.
if you have the Archon, whatever it is.
Some of the dirtlier decks, I mean, for example, we were going to talk later on, maybe a little bit preview, but like the blue-green deck, right, where it's big fat creatures, right, like you just want to hold the fort until you get your fatties out.
Yep.
And there we go. Then we have Locthwain Gargoyle, 1 for a 0/3, and then you may tap 4 to pay and say Locthwain Gargoyle gets +2/+0 and gains flying until end of turn. So at first you might not think it looks particularly impressive, but again, this is a case where flying actually does come at a premium here. It's very helpful. Things are going to get gummed up on the ground. And having 3 toughness, there's actually not a lot of flyers out there who can beat 3 toughness. You'll see a lot of them with just 2 power.
Yep.
Right. So this guy can attack pretty profitably in there. So don't overlook it just quite yet.
Yeah. And crucial to note, he does not have defender, so if you do throw on equipment,
Yes.
you can just rumble in with him.
And he doesn't have flying naturally. Also another thing too. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, he gets that by the tower, but
Yeah.
you can get him out
Right.
if you want to pay
But
for it.
I'm just saying that if you want to use it to block like a flyer or
Yeah.
something, you're still going to have to pay for it. So the usage, it's not fantastic, but I don't think it's nearly as bottom of the barrel as some people might initially think of it as.
Right. So we also have Shambling Suit, which is another 3 CMC artifact creature. Its power is equal to the number of artifacts and or enchantments you control, and its toughness is 3.
Yeah, this is one of the few kind of just counts total numbers stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that and like all that glitters, right?
Right.
So these are the ones where, all right, like now that you've built up your board full of artifacts, food tokens, enchantments, this is going to be your payoff. This is going to be your beat stick.
Yep. And speaking of all that glitters,
Yep. Is gold.
no stairway.
So yeah, all that glitters, a 1 and a white, enchantment or enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact and or enchantment you control. So
Yep.
That's it's good.
It's real good. If you're in this deck, this uncommon is going to be something that your opponent has to deal with.
Yep.
So we mentioned Trapped in the Tower earlier. This is great. You know, it triggers or accounts for all of your enchantments matter stuff.
Yep.
You're in white. You're going to be running this, like we said before, during the removal.
It'll hit a bunch of stuff,
conversation.
and if you do hit it, it's going to stay that way. There are very few ways to give something flying in the set.
Yep. Charm Sleep. We talked about this too. Same thing. If you're in blue, you're running it. So it's common, so you'll see it. You're more likely to see it than a lot of other cards.
Rockify, same thing. Just control the board, get rid of their biggest threats, go in through the air, just have a whole bunch of enchantments in here, and fortifying provisions. This is a card I think I'm really excited to try. It's 2 and a white enchantment. Creatures you control get +0/+1, and when it enters the battlefield, create a food token. Now, initially, the cute stuff is that it'll activate like your Shine Chaser, right? It's immediately both an enchantment and an artifact. But I'm just thinking back on Ravnica Allegiance, I believe it was, with Azorius. They have an Azorius creature that is creatures your opponents control get -1/-0. And I got that cast against me, and that was the most miserable experience I've had in a long time.
Yeah, combat math is dumb.
It messes with combat math so bad, it's just like, well, this is entirely pointless. It doesn't quite win you races as much in the racing situation as giving your opponent's creatures -1/-0.
Right.
But this is just one of the things where it's just like, all right, now this is like, it's really hard to block profitably anymore if you're on this side, because originally you already have a bunch of like 2/3s, right? And then there's now a bunch of 3/3s and like 3/2s and all that other jazz.
Yeah. And now they're 2/4s, which like doesn't seem like a big deal, but now you're blocking.
Yeah, because four toughness is a very big deal.
Yeah.
So.
And since this is common, you might have multiples of them, and you're probably going to be running them mostly for the food.
Yeah.
But the +0/+1 is going to be really useful for you.
Yeah.
So Tiny, which is we didn't really include it in the removal, but we should have included this in the tricks. But So Tiny, for a single blue, you have an enchantment or a flash enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets -2/-0. Or if its controller has 7 or more cards in their graveyard, it gets -6, -0 instead.
Right. So this is awesome for later on in the mill deck we're going to talk about. There's a mill theme going on in blue-black. And so in the very beginning, you can take out somebody who's, the little 2/3 drop kind of deals, which they don't have a lot of power. It's fine. But later on in the game, you just play it. Later on, if you don't use it till later, it just takes out, their big scary creature as well.
Yep.
Mantle of Tides. We sort of talked about this. This is artifact equipment for a single blue. Equipped creature gets +1/+2. I mean, it's a great combat trick. Once we start talking about it's more so for the artifact aspect of it.
Right.
In this particular deck, but once we start talking about the second draw deck, it's going to do a lot of really interesting things.
Yep, and finally, we have True Love's Kiss. So it's 2 white, instant, exile target artifact or enchantment, draw a card. You're likely going to run into a lot of artifacts.
People are going to sideboard this into you.
Yeah.
If you're playing this deck, so you want to pay attention to it. Thankfully, it's just 4 mana, so it takes a little bit for it to get online. The issue is just exile. There's not a lot of artifact destruction. There's like this. There's that one in green, the Return to Nature or whatever.
And there's the one in red.
The Shield Breaker dude, right? Yep. Like, that's about it. So, I mean, yeah, I feel like you do have to play around this, but if you're going to have so many artifact and enchantments that they have to deal with that you're probably going to be all right.
Right. And then for you can get rid of like your opponent's one of equipment.
Yeah.
Right. So you're gonna want these.
Yeah.
I think that they're gonna be useful. And honestly, if equipment ends up being as big of a deal as we think it is, this might be main deckable.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Sweet.
Yeah. So that was it for those cards, which they're already out of my mind because I'm tired.
Yep. But this is the fun part. This is me. I am a dirty degenerate mill player.
Yeah.
So I am super excited. There's this first one, Drown in the Loch, for blue and a black. Instant, choose one, counter target spell with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of cards in its controller's graveyard, or destroy target creature with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of cards in its controller's graveyard. So once you start milling stuff out, boom, right?
Yep.
Early on, it's great. Later on, it's just so flexible. Because people are always talking about if you're playing like a mill or a control deck, you either have to put in your counter spells or creature destruction, and never the twain shall meet.
Right.
Right. And now you have one that does both. So this is like, all right, perfect. And it scales based on how much you've milled them already, which is already your game plan.
Yep.
Sweet.
And also, like, just over the course of playing Magic, stuff will get into the graveyard.
Yep.
Right. Through combat, through removal, through discard. Like you're going to be feeding this.
Yep.
And if you have multiples of this, you're going to be running.
Yeah.
Covetous Urge is the other signpost, which I'm excited about this.
Oh, this card, I think I'm more excited about this card than Drown in the Loch, just for it does things that I really like to do.
All right. So Dimir. For a sorcery, target opponent reveals their hand. You choose a non-land card from that player's graveyard or hand, and exile it. You may cast that card for as long as it remains exiled. You may spend mana or mana of any color to cast that spell. So it is a guaranteed, thief of sanity, right?
So you steal from their hand, so you can either take their take something that's blank their removal, right?
Right.
Or a counter spell, or like end of the game, you just take the best spell that they cast this game.
Yep.
It's great. And you may spend mana as though it was mana of any color. So it's still, for Adamant, you still have to spend the right colors according to that Adamant spell.
Right.
But so it just, buyer beware. But it's still good.
It's still
real good. Merfolk Secret Keeper. It is a 0/4 Merfolk for just 1 blue mana, which, again, relevant, toughness, really good, can block a lot of stuff. However, what the mill deck people want is just 1 blue, Venture Deeper, sorcery. Target player puts the top 4 cards of the library into their graveyard. So you got a Tome Scour with this thing.
Yep.
Sweet.
This is a great turn 2 play.
It is. You got a Tome Scour and a big butt on the ground.
Yep.
What more do you want as a mill player?
Yeah,
I mean,
for real.
Bouncing it back to your hand, I guess.
Yeah, of course.
Similar with the Sex card, of course.
Yeah, this is the best fugitive wizard that has ever been printed. Overwhelmed Apprentice. For a single blue, you get a 1/2 human wizard. When Overwhelmed Apprentice enters the battlefield, each opponent puts the top 2 cards of their library into their graveyard, and then you get to scry 2.
Yeah.
For a blue. Like, This is a dumb card.
I mean, we already remember how powerful Fairy Seer was,
Yeah.
right? In Modern Horizons.
Well, it flew. But
It
still.
flew. But the thing is, like, just the Scry 2 was stupid anyway. And so now we also get the Mill 2. I mean,
Yeah. It's uncommon, but this is extremely powerful.
Yep. So, and then we have Cauldron's Gift. So this is interesting because it's 4 and a black. We mentioned this previously before. This is the bring back to the graveyard, bring back to the battlefield.
Yep.
But we have all those creatures who just blocked in all that Overwhelmed Apprentice. I mean, this might be a little bit overkill for the Overwhelmed Apprentice, but it's still just if you're milling stuff for yourself. So it really does vary if you want to mill yourself for stuff too.
Right. We also have Eye Collector. So for single black, you get a 1/1 flyer. Great early gameplay, right?
Yep.
But when it deals combat damage to a player, each player mills 1.
Yeah. So
that's
great.
Good.
Mill 1. Yeah. I mean, you want to fill stuff into your graveyard, right?
Yep.
Sir Conrad the Grim. So this is the uncommon legendary knight in black. Again, we mentioned before, whenever a creature card goes in the graveyard, basically from anywhere, right? Or leaves your graveyard, you deal 1 damage, and this is also the consistent way to mill.
Yep. Reaper of Night. This is an interesting one. This is one of the most expensive creatures in the set. At least a common. So Reaper of the Night, 5 black for a 4/5 with whenever it attacks, if defending player has 2 or fewer cards in hand, it gains flying till end of turn. This is one of the only ways to get conditional flying. One of the only creatures that has conditional flying. And then it also has an adventure, Harvest Fear, 3 and a black for a sorcery. Target opponent discards 2 cards.
So Mind Rot, and then if they happen to have 2 or fewer cards, it gains flying.
Yep.
So great. It's a specter, right? Attacks and just destroys the people's hands. Just note that it doesn't gain flying unless it's attacking, so you can't use it to block flyers.
Right.
Yeah. Wicked Guardian, 3 and a black. Human Noble. When Wicked Guardian enters the battlefield, you may have it deal 2 damage to another creature you control. If you do, draw a card. So this is one of the things where it's relevant to have 3 toughness to survive, right? And it's got 4/2, so it can attack or block pretty profitably. But if you manage to, if you draw a card, it's fine, and then now you can just go right ahead and trade it off against another creature. It's replaced itself.
Yep.
It's great. Wonderful.
Miss for total. 3 and a blue for a 1/5, which is a fantastic toughness value.
Yep.
Whenever it attacks, another target attacking non-human creature can't be blocked this turn.
So having 5 toughness is fantastic because it'll survive combat, and then just get somebody else to be unblockable. Huzzah!
Yep.
This is great. I like it. Didn't say please. All right, so this is Thought Erasure, Thought Collapse.
Yep.
So 1 blue, counter target spell. Its controller puts the top 3 cards of the library into the graveyard. Counter spell, it's fine. I mean, there's always going to be some cancel variant that's going to be printed somewhere. I just like that it mills. This is me just making me super happy.
Yep. So the next one we're going to talk about is another counterspell-ish. Hypnotic Sprite is blue for a 2/1 flyer, which is great. And then 2 and a blue instant counter target spell with CMC 3 or less.
Yeah. So this is great. I mean, it's fantastic. Great control card. Great way to send a flying body out there and just ping you in, just chip away at you.
Yep.
Great. Mystical Dispute for 2 and a blue. This spell costs 2 less if you cast it if it targets a blue spell. Counter target spell unless its controller pays 3. So bit of a mana leak, expensive mana leak. However, it turns into a much cheaper one if you counter another blue. So in a counter wars, it's this is again the same color hate card. I mean, sideboard really.
Yeah. That is very true.
Yeah.
But if you're in this matchup, you're going to want to be countering safe.
Yep.
So you're going to want to consider this.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, we have Into the Story. 5 blue. This spell costs 3 less to cast if an opponent has 7 or more cards in their graveyard.
Yep.
And then you get to draw 4 cards. So, I mean, 2 blue, draw 4. It's fantastic.
Yep.
At instant speed, it's real good.
Yeah.
That is real good. And so that's it for the blue-black deck.
Mm-hmm.
Red-green non-humans is up next.
Yeah, so there's actually a lot of non-humans in this deck. We're just pointing out a couple of more interesting ones.
Right.
So first off is Grumgully the Generous. So it's a lovely red-green uncommon legendary goblin shaman. Each other non-human creature you control enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. It's a 3/3. So I was talking about previously how base stats alone, things are going to gum up on the board. But now everybody's coming in with additional +1/+1 counter on it.
Yep.
All of a sudden that is a big advantage. And it's only for 3 too. So anything after that is just going to be much more relevant. All your 4-drop 3/3s, or drop 3/4s, or even just the next turn, just drop another thing that was like a 2/3 before. Now it's a 3/4. It's so good.
Yep. We also have Rampart Smasher, Gruul for a 5/5. Awesome.
Yeah.
This is the best rate so far.
Great rate.
Can't be blocked by knights or walls. Walls, Knights.
Knights. So here's the interest. Yeah, just because like I think a lot of people are going to try to force knights.
Yeah.
So like this guy is just a straight no. Like no.
This is a weird safety valve.
Yeah.
For limited, and I'm really excited to see if it ends up being just free 5 damage against your knight opponent. Right.
Red Cap Raiders for 2 and a red for 3/2. A Goblin Warrior. When Red Cap Raider attacks, you may tap an untapped non-human creature you control. If you do, Red Cap Raiders gets +1/+1 and gains trample until end of turn. So I mean, this is I think this is going to be really awesome because you drop it down in turn 3. Turn 4, you put out a creature, can't attack with it anyway, so fine. You just tap it to give your Red Cap Raiders +1/+1 and trample. Just get in there for damage. Whether it's blocked and they just kill something, but hey, it's got trample, right? Or just 4 damage to opponent's face. I mean, I think this is solid.
I agree. Next up, we have Wildwood Tracker. So for a single green, you get a common Elf Warrior. That's a 1/1. But whenever it attacks or blocks, if you control another non-human creature, it just gets +1/+1 till end of turn.
So if you built the right deck, this is a 1-mana 2/2.
Yep.
If
you have 2 of them, they turn each other on.
Yeah.
Right. So and it's at common, so that's relatively likely to happen.
Fierce Witch Stalker for 2 green, creature wolf. So this isn't exactly the big bad wolf, but this is pretty close. It's probably bigger and badder than the other wolf, though.
Yeah.
Trample, when Fierce Witch Stalker enters the battlefield, create a food token. It's a 4/4. So already, base rate-wise, 4 mana 4/4 with Trample is ridiculously good.
Yep.
And it comes in with food, so there's so many food synergies in this set. This can go with anybody. If you go with white, if you go with blue, right? For example, the fairies will love the food token. If you're playing with black, then black, you're sacrificing it for all sorts of stuff. There's a lot of food sacrifice stuff in blue-black, even in green too.
Mm-hmm.
Just eat that food for stuff. This is so much versatility in that extra food token.
Yep.
Besides just the great rate on the body.
Yeah, just like a 4/4 trample for 4 is a fantastic card in the set. Period.
Yep.
But getting the food token is also a really really nice bonus. Next we have Keeper of Fables, 3 green for a 4/5 cat. Whenever one or more non-human creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, draw a card. So this counts for fairies, this counts for goblins, this counts for the wolf, right? This counts for practically anything.
Right.
That you can throw into a green X deck.
Yeah, you'll see a lot of trample going on, so you can ping through, or if you just pair it with the fairies and just go in there hard to block, that's great.
Yep.
2 Unveiled Treefolk. It is a 6/5 green Treefolk druid for 6 mana, 5 and a green. Vanilla. However, it does have Oaken Boom as an adventure. For 3 and a green, put 2 +1/+1 counters on target creature. Great. It's Oaken Arms, I guess, if you want to think about it that way.
Mm-hmm.
But +1/+1 counters, really good just because, green might not have as much access to equipment, so it has to do +1/+1 counters. Still not a lot in the set, but still really good. Pump up something, make sure it can fight profitably. Then you got a big 6/5 ready to crash and rumble in.
Yep.
Right? Great.
Next, for a couple of spells you're going to want to look out for, we have Barge In. So for a single red, you get an instant at common. Target attacking creature gets +2/+2 till end of turn, and then each attacking non-human creature gains trample until end of turn.
Yeah, so if you have a big team of big tough guys like giants, or we just talked about previously that tree folk, they're all going to get trample now.
Yep.
It's great, and it's just a single red.
Yeah, no, it's real good.
So this is a really cool one. I love these anthem effects for attacking creatures. Ferocity of the Wilds, 2 and a red. Attacking non-human creatures you control have +1/+0 and have trample. There we go, trample again.
Yep.
Right? Hit that with Keeper of Fables right over there. Oh, you're gonna be drawing cards, hopefully.
Yeah. And then the last thing we have in this deck is Rosethorn Halberd, which we talked about earlier, but specifically it's in here because it attaches to a non-human creature you control whenever it enters the battlefield.
Yep. So again, remember the equip 5 is going to be a little bit rough, so might as well put it on. You want to put it on something that's helpful.
Yep.
But otherwise, after it falls off, if the creature dies, it's an artifact. Maybe if you're playing blue-green, the artifact helps. Otherwise, I'm sure you can do some kind of thing to sacrifice it to something or another.
Yeah. And I mean, eventually you'll get to 5 mana, right? The 2/1 is still really good.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So
Sticking in green.
Yeah, sticking with green, we're going to move on to green-white, and they have an adventure sub-theme, which is really interesting.
Yeah, so there's a lot of adventure cards. I think white and green both have 7 creatures with adventure on them.
Right.
So it's the highest density out of all the different colors. So you put them together, there's going to be a lot of adventure support. So starting off, we have a Wandermare, which is a 1 green-white creature, horse, more horses, for a 3/3. Whenever you cast a creature spell that has an adventure, put a +1/+1 counter on Wandermare, and it doesn't have to have gone on the adventure first.
Right.
So fine, by all means, but just put in there. You just already 3/3 is fine, but once you put any one additional on there, 4/4, great stat line. Again, having that power, having over that limit, you hit that critical point of 4 toughness, perfect.
Yep. This one I'm not super hot on just yet. It might prove okay. But Occam Ranger, so Selesnya, for a 2/2 with tap, creatures you control get +1/+1 till end of turn.
Right.
If you're going wide, which white wants you to do and green kind of wants you to do,
Because it is a knight.
It is a knight. That's true. Yeah, that +1/+1, that anthem effect is going to be useful.
Yeah.
It also has an adventure on it. Bring back Selesnya for sorcery. Create 2 1/1 white human creature tokens.
Right. So this is another one of the cases where, like, if you in the Knights deck, like, if you are predominantly white, give this a shot. If you're running like 12 white or something, if it's a very light splash in a different color in your Knight deck, you can possibly justify putting this guy in there because you want the wide bodies. You have Sir Alan, you have your then all the Circle of Flame thingamabobber that pumps your guys. You have that heraldic banner. You basically all of a sudden your little white guys are now coming in for his 4/4s.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that is obviously Magical Christmas Land kind of deal, but
that's true.
Still, like, yeah. The big support card though for adventures that's going to be something that you want to keep an eye out for is Lucky Clover. 2 mana for an artifact. Whenever you cast an adventure, instant, or sorcery spell, copy it. You may choose new targets for the copy. Basically, every adventure spell we had, basically you want to copy it. There's not a lot. There's only like I count like 1 or 2 adventure cards in which you don't really care if it copies or not.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's great. Like,
and for 2 mana and green white, you're not really casting an adventure on 2 anyway.
Right.
You're likely starting at 3 or 4.
Yeah.
So just getting this out early is going to be really, really good for your deck.
Yeah.
Mysterious Pathlighter. This doesn't have an adventure on it, but it cares about them.
Yeah.
So for 2 and a white for a 2/2 flyer, I'm going to say this every single time that it's this close to being on par or this close to being at normal rate.
Yeah.
It's great. It's great for this set.
It's basic Windrake, in fact. It's a 3 mana 2/2, right?
Yeah, so 3 mana 2/2 with flying. And then each creature you control that has an adventure enters the battlefield with an additional 1/1 counter on it.
Edgewall Innkeeper. So this is another one. This is great because it's only 1 green for a 1/1, and whenever you cast a creature spell that has an adventure, draw a card. So great. 1 drop. All right, and then you set yourself up for the rest of the game. Perfect.
Next we have Garen Briggs Squire, 1 and a green for a 2/2. Whenever you cast a creature spell that has an adventure, it gets +1/+1 till end of turn.
Right. So it starts off as a bear.
Yep.
Fine. Yeah, but then it gets 3/3. I mean, sure, it's 3/3 is right there on the cusp of doable. And the thing is that at that point, not knowing how many adventure cards you have, might as well swing it in. If it trades, fine, trades up. Otherwise, sure, you hit in for 3. Cool.
Yeah, it's okay, and I mean it's a common, right?
Yeah.
So it's not going to be as powerful as the cards that we have mentioned, which were all uncommon so far.
Beanstalk Giant.
Yeah.
So this is one of the adventure cards that we have. Again, this is like, if you think about it, it's a 6 and a green, star. Beanstalk Giant's power and toughness are each equal to the number of lands you control. It's going to take a while to get this guy out. However, it'll help that its sorcery is Fertile Footsteps. 2 and a green, sorcery. Search your library for a basic land card, put it on the battlefield, then shuffle your library.
Yep.
And again, if you Magical Christmas Land, if you have like a Lucky Clover beforehand, all of a sudden you just 2 lands. Yeehaw.
Yeah, that's a good curve, right? Suddenly 5 mana on turn 4 or on turn 3.
Yeah, it's solid.
Yeah. Next we have Fairy Guidemother. For a single white, you get a 1/1 flyer, and then Gift of the Fae, 1 and a white sorcery. Target creature gets +1/+1 against flying until
+2/+1.
Oh, +2/+1. Yes, thank you.
Yep. A lot of +2/+1s.
Yeah.
In this set.
So much.
Right. So this is the only way in this set to give any arbitrary creature flying.
Yep.
Is to have your Fairy Guidemother. Very flavorful if you're trapped in a tower. Fairy Guidemother, saves you from it. But yeah, the only thing that sort of gets me is that it's a sorcery.
Yeah.
So I mean, it makes sense if you give it flying so that it can't be blocked and all that other jazz. But meh. But still, and then in the end you have a 1/1 body. All right, cool, whatever. It's still a flyer. It's hard to deal with.
Yep. We're gonna breeze past our good friend, the Ardenvale Tactician.
Yep.
It's gonna go in here.
Yeah.
Well, like we said, this is an extremely powerful card.
Yeah.
At common, if you're in white, you're running it.
Yeah.
It fits all of the archetypes actually, right?
Yeah.
Flyers, knights, and adventurers. So this is a fantastic card. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Garenbrig Carver. So 3 and a green for a 3/2 vanilla. However, you want it for its adventure. Shield's Might. 1 and a green, instant adventure. Target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. I mean, it's solid. I mean, like, it's a little bit undercosted in each of the halves. You'll notice in a lot of the adventures it's like that. However, it's the versatility that you really just pay for. And this is great. It's just early on, it's a pump spell. Helps your creatures either deal more damage or survive something in combat. Afterwards, the 3/2 body, perfectly fine. It can handle itself. It handle itself to trade off against another creature or just disincentivize your opponents from attacking.
Yep.
Free power can block a lot of stuff profitably. Well, not profitably, but trade with a lot of stuff.
Yeah. And the thing with these is that they don't take up another spell slot, right?
Yeah. This is why I wanted for my cube so much for for the red-blue spells matters kind of deal. It's just all right, cool. You can cast another spell. I don't have to worry about it so much.
Yeah. So we have Lonesome Unicorn next. So for 4 and a white, you get a 3/3 vigilance, which is okay. But Rider in Need, 2 and a white, you get a sorcery that creates a 2/2 white knight creature token with vigilance.
A lot of vigilance stuff going on.
Yeah. So if you curve into this, that's great. You have 5 power on the board with vigilance.
Yeah.
It's good.
So again, this is one of the things where individually they might be a little bit overcosted, but you put it all together, you get just value.
Yep.
And you're paying a premium for that versatility. 2 and Treefolk, just another one we've talked about before, a creature with adventure. Tall as a beanstalk. So enchantment aura, enchanted creature has +3/+3, has reach, and is a giant in addition to its other types.
Yeah.
So I think this was dealing with the realm cloak giant is the big giant sweeper.
Yeah.
It has an adventure where you just wipe the board with giants. Well, all right, if need be, you can turn one of your other creatures into a giant as well to make it survive that wrath.
Yeah. And one of the reasons I wanted to include this in here is because the +3/+3 is a big deal, but the reach is an even bigger deal.
Right.
In combination with it, because you can put it on practically anything, and now you're killing every flyer in the game.
Yeah.
Right. As long as you put it on an X2. Well, as long as you put it on a 2/2.
Yeah, 2 something.
Yeah. If you put it on a 2/3, you're profitably killing every flyer in the set. If you put it on a 2/4 or 3/4, then you're in business, right? And the reason we didn't really talk about a lot of spells that go in this is that you want the removal, right? That's kind of what you're going to prioritize because the creatures that you have are going to be giving you the rest of the value that you would normally be relying on the spells to do.
Yep. And so now
No, I'm sorry.
Oh yes, this is the deck I'm most excited to try and do because obviously, again, the universe conspires for me to play Izzet. As much as I am at my heart some kind of Sultai-Simic graveyard value, mess with the graveyard kind of guy. But so this one, blue and red, there's a lot of when you draw your second card per game this turn kind of effects. Definitely the signpost one is Improbable Alliance here. It's an enchantment. Blue and a red enchantment. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, create a 1/1 blue fairy creature token with flying. And for 4 blue-red, draw a card and then discard a card. So if at worst, there's going to be a lot of cantrips in this set. At worst, you just also pay 6 mana to do so and just loot. But you're just going to get a whole bunch of ways to draw your second card. In this case, you're just generating fairies, which hard to deal with little annoying little, buzzy little fairies. Yep. But there's going to be a lot of other cards later on in this deck you'll see. You got a lot of advantages for drawing your second card. And there's going to be a lot of interesting ways to get that effect to happen.
Yep, I'm really excited for this little archetype. I wish that it would work in standard, but Narset exists, so that will never happen.
Yep.
But while we're here in Limited Land, we have Lock Dragon for Izzet. You get a 3/2 flyer, which is good.
Is it a dragon?
I am going to choose to ignore that. When Lock Dragon enters the battlefield or attacks, you may discard a card if you do draw a card. So that's already, a reliable way to get your second card draw.
It's exactly so. On the turn it comes down already, it does that, and every turn afterwards, you can instantly trigger that second draw. It's, like just in the enabler. Like at first, I was thinking it's like, it's fine, but then like when I started hearing about like limited resources talking about it, like you are consistently triggering your second card draw every single turn. Just makes
Pretty
it
valuable.
a lot better, yeah. Fairy Vandal. So Clay, I think is fun because I looked at this previously when we were still talking about the Flash deck, the Simic Flash deck.
Yeah.
Currently, making the rounds in Arena. A lot of stuff is going to be rotating out, but we have a new Flash creature in here. So 1 and a blue for a 1/2 flyer, Flash, Flying Fairy Rogue. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, put a +1/+1 counter on Fairy Vandal. So, I mean, sure, like you're just gonna pump this guy up. Your cantrips are just gonna get extra value on this guy, right? Just once getting a 2/3 for 2 on a flying creature.
Yeah,
great.
Yeah, I mean, like in a good like magical Christmas land, like this guy, end of turn, untap opt.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like there's some cool things you can do with this guy, and he just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Mm-hmm. Steel Gaze Griffin is 4 and a blue for a 2/4 with flying.
Yep.
But whenever you draw your second card each turn, it gets +2/+0 till end of turn, so it becomes a 4/4 flyer, which is pretty big. It's the second biggest flyer, I think.
I mean, again, this is one of the cases where it turns any of your ops into all of a sudden just also 2 extra damage.
Yep,
okay.
And it's aggressive because you're usually drawing the second card on your turn.
Right.
But if you have an instant or multiple instant draw spells,
you
can do it on your opponent's turn.
Yeah. So Bloodhaze Wolverine, this is one of the ones that I'm excited about. So it is a 1 and a red for a 2/1. However, whenever you draw your second card each turn, Bloodhaze Wolverine gets +1/+1 and gains first strike until end of turn. So this is the thing where, if you have an opt in hand and all of a sudden you're attacking, your opponent has to really wonder whether or not they can block it.
Yeah.
It's just like, even if you have, something like a 3 toughness guy or whatever, or like a way to kill it, all of a sudden they're like, does he have it?
Yeah.
It's a great mind games. This is why I'm so excited about this deck archetype, just because it makes combat on the ground so much more interactive. Like otherwise, I'm just thinking it's like, everything's gonna get gummed up. You're gonna have to use equipment. You're just gonna have to charge in at each other. This is where things get a little more dynamic.
Yep. Next we have Mad Ratter.
Yep.
So for 3 and a red, you get an uncommon goblin that has 1/2 power and toughness. But whenever you draw your second card each turn, you get to create 2 1/1 black rats.
Right. So in the case of if you're playing in like the blue-red deck, you're probably going to be spending most of your flyers. This is a great way to gum up the ground. Block those pesky knights, scare those horses that they have. Right. Arguably, you can also think about it if you have some of the stuff in red and black. You have sacrifice fodder in there as well. So it's definitely a possibility. We're just lumping this all together in the draw your second card series of decks. Sir Eleonora the Discerning. So this is your uncommon blue knight legend. 3 blue. Sir Eleonora the Discerning's power is equal to the number of cards in your hand. When Sir Eleonora enters the battlefield, draw a card. Spells your opponent's cast that target Sir Eleonora cost 2 more to cast. And it's a blank 4.
Yep.
So she's got 4 toughness. Great, fantastic. She can block a whole bunch of stuff. And she replaces herself, so she's at least 1/4 in her hand. Maybe more later on. You're going to be drawing a lot of cards, drawing your second card each turn, so you're probably going to be plussing a fair amount of the time. She's going to have a solid body right there.
Yep.
And it's going to be hard for your opponents to deal with.
She, for 5 mana, she automatically triggers the rest of your cards
Yep.
if you have these lower drops out on the battlefield.
Yep.
Which is really nice. Then we also have Tome Raider, which at common is really, really good.
Yeah.
So 2 and a blue for a 1/1 with flying, but when it enters the battlefield, you draw a card.
Again, triggering your second card draw.
Yep.
And then the funny thing is looking at Cloud Kinseer.
Yeah.
20, you're just like, Cloud Kinseer is really pushed in comparison. But the Tome Raider, this one, you really just care about the extra card draw.
Yep.
Merchant of the Veil. So this is another one where you get the instant draw. 2 and a red for a human peasant for 2/3. Again, 3 mana, 2/3. It has an ability where it's 2 and a red, again, which you get to discard a card to draw a card. So this is repeatable rummaging.
Yep.
And it also comes with adventure for a single red, which is haggle. At instant speed, you may discard a card if you do draw a card. So just a lot of rummaging. So great way to trigger the second draw. Great way to just filter through your hand and get rid of your lands and get to drawing what you need.
Yep. I like that. I'm really glad that it's not a tap ability
Right.
on the creature. You can just do it as many times as you need to. So late game, if you need to trigger your stuff defensively, if you have enough cards in hand,
Yep.
you can pay 2 and a red twice right, to draw 2 cards on your opponent's turn.
And it's a common, which means you'll probably be seeing a couple of these.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Clockwork Servant, we've seen it before, it's just another way to draw a card. And again, it's pretty easy. It'll fit in anywhere, but you'll really like it here.
Yep. Opt, which I mentioned earlier, like this is great. I'm glad it's back, and the art is cool.
Yeah. Do you want the book or the sword?
Yeah. So for a single blue, you get an instant scry 1 draw card.
Yep. So
Great, classic Opt.
Super easy way. All of a sudden, your blue spells all of a sudden can kill stuff.
Yep.
Yay. Sage of the Falls. 4 and a blue. When Sage of the Falls or another non-human enters the battlefield under your control, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. So again, another way to trigger it. It's also non-human tribal, which means that you could possibly play with other stuff. There's a lot of other non-human stuff going on. Versatile. You're going to want a lot of different archetypes are going to want it. 2/5, big fat butt. Handle a lot of different things. It's great.
Yep.
Turn to the pumpkin. Seen this before.
Yeah. This is perfectly fine. Bounce something, draw a card. Like that's great.
You get the draw card, and then later on, if it triggers your whatever the previous merfolk was with the non-human enters the battlefield, the Sage of the Falls. That's what it was.
That's true. We also have Unexplained Visions, which we talked about in the Adamant section. Draw 3, great, and then you scry 3.
Yeah.
If you have Adamant.
Yep. It's fine. Witching Well. So blue for an artifact. When Witching Well enters the battlefield, scry 2. Okay, cool. But 3 in a blue, sacrifice Witching Well, draw 2 cards. So instant speed. This is a great way to just keep it in there and just threaten the fact that you can draw 2 cards on your opponent's turn.
Yep.
Just instantly. It's just all right. Cool. You want to try to attack into something, and boom, there we go. I drew 2 cards. All this crazy stuff happens.
Yep. And then finally we have Thrill of Possibility. So 1 in a red. There's additional cost to cast a spell. You have to discard a card, but you get to draw 2 cards. So you can do this also on your opponent's turn.
Instant speed Tormenting Voice.
Yep. It's going to be good. The rest of the stuff that you want to look at, of course, are more blue removal and a lot of the red removal.
Yep.
Ideally.
Yep.
Because red's removal is extremely powerful in this set.
Do we have the Ironcrag Pyromancer also as well in here?
Ironcrag Pyromancer is a rare.
Fine, but the thing is,
it is an archetype definer. So yes. Ironcrag Pyromancer, I'll put it up in post, but 2 in a red.
2 in a red, 0/4. Whenever you draw your second spell, return 3 damage to any
lightning bolt.
Lightning bolt, effectively. So it's great. You turned your off into a lightning bolt.
Yeah.
How fantastic is that?
It's a disgusting card. There's a reason it's rare.
And it's a 0/4, which means big butt, hard to deal with.
Yep.
So now this is another one that I'm really excited to try. Again, because I am just inherently a Sultai guy, so this is more Sultai color stuff. Graveyard Shenanigans. Savvy Hunter, 1 black, green, human warrior, 3/3, solid body. When Savvy Hunter attacks or blocks, create a food token. And you get to sacrifice 2 foods, draw a card. This guy, I feel like this guy is going to be just as silly as like Grim Flayer is to Delirium. Right? Like, this is going to define the food value archetype in and of itself. In Limited, it's great, but I definitely want to see what people do in Constructed with this card, just because there's so much stuff you can do with food. Just it alone. Sacrifice 2 foods, draw a card. So, you probably generated food somewhere or another. Before, other hand, this guy comes in, attacks or blocks. You're getting at least 1 food from this guy, unless somebody just burns it out.
Right.
But you're getting at least 1, and who knows what other crazy stuff is going to happen.
Yeah, that's true. The other signpost here is Deathless Knight. Mm-hmm. So Golgari. Almost had it. Yep. You get a 4/2 with haste. But whenever you gain life for the first time each turn, return it from your graveyard to your hand.
So if you're generating a lot of food, easy way to gain life, get this guy back. Black also doesn't mind dying all the time, just sending things in. It's a 4/2. It'll kill a bunch of stuff. It'll just go right in there. Just send this guy in. It's got haste.
Yep.
Just go in there, just crash, hit face, go for face. And you have a lot of ways to bring this guy back. Just don't be afraid to sacrifice this guy. Skeleton Knight, which means non-human.
Yep.
Which means got a whole bunch of stuff like that. Rosethorn, Halberd. Lots of other cool things to do with it. Oh yeah, Giant Skewer.
Giant Skewer.
So Giant Skewer, 1 in a black, artifact equipment, equipped creature gets +2/+1. Again.
Yep.
But whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a creature, create a food token. So again, another way to create lots of food, and you're gonna use it. You can do it defensively, you can do it offensively.
Yep.
Equip cost 3 is a little expensive, so sort of want to think about it. Either way, there's so many different things you can do with this.
Yeah. Next we have Curious Pair. So 1 in a green for a 1/3, but it has an adventure on it. Treats to Share. So for a single green, you just get to create a food token.
Yep.
This is fine to curve into.
Right, exactly. So there's not a lot. If you don't have a lot of turn one plays, go right ahead. It's got a 1/3 defensive kind of thing. Cool, but it's done its job. You can sacrifice it. Throw them in the witch's oven.
Yep. Which we'll get to. Fierce Witchtalker, which we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Right. 4/4 for 4 trample.
Yeah, it's already super high rate, but it creates a food token incidentally. I mean,
yep.
How is there just lots of value?
Yeah, it's common. You'll see a couple of these. You're going to want to run them.
Yeah. Marrowleaf Rider, 1 and a green. Sacrifice a food for an elf. It's an elf knight. Sacrifice a food. Target creature blocks Marrowleaf Rider this turn enable. And it's a 3/1.
Yep.
So this is one of those things where, all right, you can spend a food to basically just destroy a creature. So it's 1 and a green. Sacrifice a food. Destroy target creature.
Yeah, basically with toughness 3 or less. Yeah.
Like, okay, cool. Like you're generating so much food anyway. It's great.
Yeah. Sorcerer's Broom. We're going to talk about Sorcerer's Broom in specifically in regards to Witch's Oven. Mm-hmm. But for 2 mana of any color, you get a 2/1 spirit. With whenever you sacrifice another permanent, you may pay 3. If you do, create a token that's a copy of Sorcerer's Broom.
Right.
This is important because you're going to be able to sacrifice these for value.
Yep.
Because a lot of the sacrifice stuff cares about artifact
or creature,
and then some of it cares about food specifically.
Right, but there's any case where it's sacrificing artifact or creature, which you'll see elsewhere, it's going to be super helpful. It's going to be rough if you want to try to do this if you're sacrificing food, because that means you're paying 5 mana to just duplicate a Sorcerer's Broom. Probably not the best use for your mana, but if you're doing a lot of kind of stuff like the Savvy Hunter, where you're sacrificing 2 food to draw a card, hey, by the way, just pay 3 and generate another thing you can sacrifice. All right, cool.
Yep. We also have Tempting Witch, so 2 and a black for a 1/3. Whenever it enters the battlefield, create a food token. Mm-hmm. And then pay 2, tap, sack a food token, target player loses 3 life.
I like how it reverses the 3 life you gain from food to your opponent losing 3 life.
I like it.
Cool. Malevolent Noble. So this is what I was talking about. So I like me my aristocrats. So 2, sacrifice an artifact or another creature, in which that Sorcerer's Broom counts as either. Put a +1/+1 counter on Malevolent Noble. So again, we've had a lot of creatures that don't mind. They've done their job. So you had, for example, the little kids, the Hansel and Gretel cards. Right? You have your Sorcerer's Broom. You have all the food that you got. Just go right ahead, slowly over time, just sink mana into Malevolent Noble, and you just got this big guy that just comes in there and starts rumbling.
Yep. Bake into a Pie, we talked about earlier. If you're in black, you're running it.
Yeah, it's unconditional destruction, and you get food. Woo. All right, food.
Yep. Foreboding Fruit, again, we talked about this in the Adamant section.
Yep.
If you're in black, you're running it. If you're in food black,
yeah,
you want to Adamant it.
Yep. Fell the Pheasant, we've talked about this, kills any flying creature in the set, but again, you create food. So there's you can see you see a theme here where there's a lot of incidental food creation. So if you have something like Giant Opportunity as well, so 2 and a green, you may sacrifice 2 foods. If you do, create a 7/7 green giant creature token. Otherwise, create 3 food tokens. I mean, you pretty much want this for the giant creature token, but given all the cards that we've seen previously, you're very likely going to have 2 foods at that point. So you're just creating a giant 7/7.
Yeah.
This is great. So,
you can likely have this on turn 4.
Yeah. So if what you're seeing, like, you got to either have some combination of the Savvy Hunter that, what is it? The skewer, the giant skewer, right? And probably like coming like Witch's Oven or something or another. Like, if you have any combination of like those 3 and a couple of other, or a bunch of different cards, like, you are going to have the beginnings of a really solid value-based do stuff with food deck. That I'm super excited about.
Next, another Eat card, which is what I labeled them in my notes.
Yeah.
Which I think I'm gonna make the notes public this time. They're not super extensive, but Insatiable Appetite, for 1 and a green, you get an instant. You may sacrifice a food. If you do, target creature gets +5/+5 till end of turn. Otherwise, it just gets +3/+3. +3/+3 is big, right?
It's already giant growth, which is fine. Like, in any limited format, you might want like 1 or so, just in case, right?
Yep.
But if you have incidental food, all of a sudden it comes in with a 5/5. I mean, you think about like growth cycle in M20, right? You just bump something up by 5 damage. Like, even if it's just incidental, somebody just lets through like a 1/1 that you didn't really bother to block. All of a sudden, 6 damage. Woo.
Yeah. It can get out of hand very quickly.
Yeah. Trail of Crumbs, this is sort of like the kind of payoff. This is one of the payoffs you have for food that's incidental as well. Great value, 1 and a green, enchantment. When Trail of Crumbs enters the battlefield, create a food token. Get incidental food creation. Whenever you sacrifice a food, you may pay 1. If you do, look at the top 2 cards of your library. You may reveal a permanent card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest in the bottom of your library in any order. I mean, late game, every time you sacrifice a food doesn't have to be for the food's inherent ability. You know,
Right.
this could be Savvy Hunter, this could be, you know, that insatiable appetite, all of that jazz. Pay a little bit of extra, and all of a sudden you just get to filter through your cards. And you just put the bottom all the lands you don't want, you know, pull up everything else you want. It's great.
Yep, it's going to be very flexible. There's a reason it's uncommon, right?
Yep.
It's because it's very much an archetype payoff.
Yep.
Wolf's Quarry, which is a really interesting card. So 4 green green, you create 3 1/1 green boar creature tokens. That's 4 your speed. That doesn't seem great, but
Right.
they all have, when this creature dies, create a food token.
Right. So this is the only one that I'm not as high on just because it's so expensive for the boars. Arguably, if you think about it, maybe this might also have a home in the white-green, like go wide.
Okay.
Or that kind of white go wide deck, although again, double green makes it a little bit rough, but this is late game kind of deal. But you know, you have a whole bunch of stuff where you can pump it up and maybe just go in there and try to at least trade profitably with it. Or you can just all bake them into a pie with Witch's Oven.
Yep. Witch's Oven doesn't care if it's a non-token or not.
Yep.
So Witch's Oven is a single mana of any color. You get an artifact that says tap, sack a creature, create a food token. Or, if the creature's toughness was 4 or greater, you get 2 food tokens.
See, even this set recognizes that 4 toughness is a key breakpoint.
Yep.
In here.
Yeah, 4 toughness is a big deal.
Revenge of Ravens. Now this is interesting. So we were talking about the previous one, that knight, the Deathless Knight, or whatever it was, the Skeleton Knight. Revenge of Ravens is an enchantment, 3 and a black. Whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, that creature's controller loses 1 life and you gain 1 life.
Yep.
Fantastic way to recur it. But just thinking about like how much it taxes your opponent, either go wide strategy, but this also this is the functional equivalent of having your opponent's creatures have -1 attack.
Yep.
Right? And I've already mentioned that as a giant pain in the butt. I mean, it's not great for creature combat, but if you're racing, it's great, and your opponent's just like, whether or not they can just handle the taxing, I don't know. I'm excited about this card.
Yeah.
I think this card is going to be super annoying.
I agree. I think this card's going to be really annoying.
I'm probably going to lose to this card.
Yeah, it's gonna make math really tough.
Yep.
Are we on our last one?
Wow, we are on our last one.
You know, we're only an hour and 10 minutes into this section, so
right.
I think we're, you know,
Yeah.
overall we're on time.
Yep.
So we're gonna talk about the sort of catch-all deck that exists.
Blue-green, yeah. So the issue is that when we look at the gold cards in the blue-green archetype, in the blue-green colors, we have like Marrowleaf Pixie, which is a green and a blue for a flying fairy. Tap, add green or blue for 2/2.
Honestly, green-blue for a 2/2 flyer is fantastic.
It's fantastic. It's a great beat stick. But the thing is, it's also a mana dork. So if
Yep.
you need to ramp out stuff, that's fine. Like, just value-wise, it's just a value card, right? Like, depending on the kind of player you are, maybe that does excite you. For me, it's like, all right, cool. I got an efficiently statted creature,
Yeah.
and I get to ramp stuff out. I want to do crazier crap.
It's not interesting. It's efficient.
Yeah.
But why are you making me read the turtles? Next, we have Thunderous Snapper, which is the other signpost.
And the other turtle.
And the other turtle. For Simic, you get a 4/4, which is great.
Turtle Hydra. And there's another Turtle Hydra in the Brawl decks.
Yeah. Whenever you cast, please stop. Whenever you cast a spell with CMC 5 or greater, draw a card. And we looked at this. There's 18 cards.
Yeah.
At
At least in green-blue.
In green-blue.
In green-blue and or colorless, so ID of green and blue, that'll give you cost 5 or greater. So, I mean, fine. I mean, you're ramping into it anyway, so
Yeah.
it curves out nicely. But it's one of those things where I don't know how much value you're going to get just because it's 5 mana.
Yeah.
Right?
It's incidental.
Yeah. But again, 4/4, body, efficient body. All right, cool. Right?
Yep.
It's just not exciting.
Mistford River Turtle, we talked about this a little bit earlier. 3 and a blue, 1/5.
If you have efficiently static creatures, what better way than to just make these guys go in there and be unblockable?
Yep,
Right.
and they would have to. Your opponent likely has to double block this turtle to get rid of it.
Yep.
If they want to keep you from sending in your Thunderous Snapper,
Yep.
right?
Turtle Tribal!
Please don't.
Sage of the Falls. I mean, this is more just efficient stuff, right? You want to, in a ramp deck, all ramp decks live or die by drawing well, right?
Mhm.
You either you draw all of your ramp cards and not your big payoffs, or you have all your payoffs and not your ramp cards.
Right.
Sage of the Falls, I mean, it helps you get there, but it's also 5 mana too, so yeah, it'll trigger your Thunderous Snapper and smooth out your draws later on.
Yep. This is a really interesting thing because you do want to get to your big creatures, and to do that, you're going to have to
Hold the
block.
ground.
Yeah, you're going to have to block profitably, right?
Right.
Wishful Marfolk is an interesting card for this. So 1 and a blue for a 3/2 defender, which 3/2 blocks a lot of stuff.
Again, yep.
But 1 and a blue, it loses defender, becomes human until end of turn, which kind of loses a couple of the small non-human synergies in green. And I don't think there are any blue. Well, while it's on the battlefield, I don't think there are any blue.
Yeah.
But a 3/2 defender for 2 is going to block most of your opponent's early plays.
Yeah. Moonlit Scavengers, we did before, big butt. It's also CMC 5 or greater, which means it'll trigger Thunderous Snapper, and then it's just a bounce. It gets your things to go in. It gets your creatures, allows them to go in and hit face.
Yep. Okame Adversary, so 3 and a green for a 2/3. It costs 2 less to cast if your opponent has a green permanent. This is Death Touch, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you get to draw a card.
Right.
So you're going to want this just so that it gets you that much further, and also because it blocks really, really well.
It blocks well, and if your opponent's a hate card in green, which I mean, it's fine. Like that's really good if your opponent's playing green. But if not, it's still great. It's a great defender. And if you have ways, for example, like the River Turtle to give it unblockable, you're just drawing, and then or the Keeper of Fables and all that other jazz. You're just going to be drawing a lot of cards.
Yep.
Sweet. Blue green. Draw cards. That's why I like them. Rosethorn Acolyte for 2 and a green. Creature, Elf Druid, and it's for 2/3. Tap, add 1 mana of any color. So it is sort of your mana dork. It's a little expensive. However, it does have an adventure to sort of ease the pain over there. For 1 green, just a single green mana, seasonal ritual, sorcery, add 1 mana of any color.
Yep.
So Manamorphose, I guess.
Yeah, well, you don't get to draw a card, right? But
Right.
like it filters that mana.
Right. Well, it draws a card in the sense that like you can still play the creature later on. So I guess
that's true.
Pay 1 mana, transform a color, draw Rosethorn Acolyte.
This is great if you're in blue green or green X and you need to adamant your second color.
Right.
Right. Like this is going to be really useful. 2/3, it's great, and it ramps you.
Yep. Flaxen Intruder, so Goldilocks. So for a single green, it is a 1/2, which is pretty decent on rate. Whenever Flaxen Intruder deals combat damage to a player, you may sacrifice it. When you do, destroy target artifact or enchantment. I think we've talked about this previously. It's a little bit funky, just trying to get it in. Like it's not like Mistford River Turtle can make it unblockable.
Right.
I don't really know how useful that'll be to just destroy stuff. However, you do have Welcome Home, which is a good ramp target. You ramp all of your stuff. You get all your mana out, and all of a sudden you just have 3 2/2 green bear tokens.
Yeah.
Trigger,
For
you trigger your Sage of the Falls or something. All of a sudden you loot 3 times, right? Stuff like that. Or this will count as Thunderous Snapper, right? You get to draw a card too. Cool.
Yep. Similarly, Beanstalk Giant for the ramp. 6 and a green. We talked about it earlier. 6 and a green, power and toughness equal to the number of lands you control. Or Fertile Footsteps, 2 and a green, search your library for a basic land card put on the battlefield, untapped, and then shuffle your library.
Yep.
That's going to be useful, right? It's just going to ramp you up, get you closer to the Beanstalk Giant.
Yep. Into the story, just another big spell. Again, these are all big spells. We're just listing some of the big spells that you can cast in order to trigger Thunderous Snapper. So that one, hey, draw 5 cards. Yeah.
Yep. Ideally. And then Rosethorn Halberd, which we've talked about. You're going to have a lot of non-humans in this deck.
Yep. The Merfolk.
Yep.
You can equip it before it becomes human.
That's true. And also, you're going to get to 5 eventually, so it's going to be fine.
Yeah. Heraldic Banner, just ramp, but then it also gives them a bonus attack. Just cool. All right.
Yeah.
I mean, you already have efficiently static creatures. Make it more efficient.
If you're in 2 colors and you have this, you're running it.
Yeah.
But in particular in this deck, the ramp is nice.
Yeah.
Spinning Wheel, same thing.
Yep.
This is kind of control-y.
I do like the 5, and it gives you something to do late game once you have your mana established, though, so that you can just tap target creature either to just tap down their most threatening attacker or defender.
Yep.
Right.
So 3 mana, tap, add 1 mana of any color.
I mean,
fine.
Yeah. If you got to the
tap,
point where
tap,
you can, like you said, with the halberd, right? Like you're gonna get to 5 mana eventually. It depends. It might not be the most efficient use of your mana, but it could be just what you need.
Right. I don't know how that got in here. I guess there are probably going to be a lot of if you have mana rocks, you're going to want to run them, but a lot of the good artifacts for this are uncommon.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it. I think we're done.
I think we are.
Is there anything else that you wanted to add? Because we're talking
Yeah, Eldraine. I don't know. I just think I'm overall just super excited about this set. There's a lot of really interesting things going on. I mentioned before, the ground game looks like it's either going to be super bogged down or you're just swinging it just for the hills. Like watching the pre-release, the Knights mirror match, you're just basically slugfest and trying to eke out advantages with food.
Yeah.
Right? Or if you're the kind of person who wants like super combo-y kind of play, the blue-red deck where it's like, all right, draw cards, trigger effects, do tons of cool stuff. Yeah. Or like the real grindy value Golgari food-based deck. Like there's a deck in here for any kind of type of player.
Yeah.
And that's
For
what
sure.
got me really excited about this. Like I can just like, yeah, I want to play mill. All right, sure. Or like, yeah, I just want to go tempo face, into draw cards. Okay, cool. Or just equipment and just Voltron up the biggest, meanest knight I can find and just send it to you and
Yeah.
sure. Right?
Yep. There's a lot of cool stuff that you're going to be able to do in this set. You don't necessarily have to stick to two colors. The mono color is relatively viable in this set.
Yeah,
Like mono with a splash.
Yeah, I feel like mono red is probably the most likely one, but
Yeah.
I can see an argument for like mono black though. I think
Okay. Yeah, that's fair.
just the amount of adventure stuff you can do, just get so much value out of the
Yeah.
stuff that you're getting there. You can just probably just outvalue your opponent.
That is true. Rankings, we didn't really like talk about like, where we think these decks are gonna end up.
Yeah.
I think that the blue-red deck is gonna be really, really fast. Because you're just getting a lot of value as you draw more and more
Right.
cards.
You're gonna keep up the thing, but I still think personally that probably it all depends on how well we recognize the equipment. It's gonna be the big deal. Like a lot of these equipment, they're only like you get them out for like 2 mana.
Yeah.
Right. Like they're 2 mana equipment. You set them up for all your 3-drops and creatures and all that other jazz, and all of a sudden, these creatures are going to be a lot harder to deal with. These are permanent buffs that are going to stay on the field long after the creature's dead. They're still going to be buffing. They're still going to be buffing creatures. So, I feel like it's going to be all about the equipment and how well you can synergize with those equipment and how well you can utilize them.
I agree. I think the equipment's going to be big. The free equips are going to be really important. You're going to run into it a lot. It's going to make combat math awful.
Yeah.
But sometimes that's how limited it is. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the pre-release, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to our sealed league.
Yeah. I don't know what I want to play though.
I know.
I also go to the cards, but oof.
I want to play the blue-red deck. I would love nothing more than to draw cards and make a bunch of tokens.
I wouldn't mind.
Maybe lightning bolt my opponent.
I wouldn't mind trying to just I think the Golgari food value shenanigans one, like that 4/2 Deathless Knight. I don't know, something about that just speaks to me. Like I just want to ram it to your face and then get it back to my hand again.
Yeah.
Just over and over and over.
Yeah. I think that will be pretty fun.
Although in all likelihood I'll probably end up Simic though. Probably just because of pile of stuff.
Right. So real quick, if you don't know who we are, normally we stream Magic the Gathering every Sunday at 4 o'clock Eastern, and Wednesdays at 8 o'clock Eastern, and it's paper.
Yes.
We have a semi-professional setup with a card reader and cameras and lights and all sorts of shit.
This is actually, believe it or not, this is the control room to our actual setup.
Yeah. This is the video game streaming setup, which we also stream video games, and occasionally Magic Arena. Yeah, you can find us on Twitter at CNC Power Hour, or hang out in our Discord. Which Lou's on there, I'm on there. We talk about Magic stuff, we talk about anime, we talk about music, movies, whatever.
Jank brews, commiserating on our bad beats.
Yeah.
And then just bullying Scryfall bot into just long lists of cards while we try to brew jank stuff.
Yeah. It's a fun little group. Lou made a promise about this fucking turtle story.
Yeah.
So
the reason why Chris here just always just seems to have this 1,000-yard stare every time we mention turtles is he has a terrible experience that he's traumatized forever from the Kaladesh
pre-release.
So this was before we met. So we met each other during Dominaria, and that's another story that I'll probably tell eventually about how, I also played the dirtiest blue-white control deck and traumatized another one of your friends.
Yeah. Let me see if I can find it.
Yeah.
Turtle. Nope, it's on this page. It exists somewhere in my Reddit comment history, which is terrifying. Why are you not sorted correctly? Sort by. Nope.
So you gotta keep on scrolling down to load more.
Keep on scrolling down to load more. I am relatively active on Reddit. By that I mean I post, like, I comment once a week or something.
3 years ago, 1 year ago. Oh, this is all top. So
this is all top. So it's. Come on, is this actually searching? Is it? I guess it is.
I guess we can just cut to it then when we get there.
No. This is part of the journey, Lou.
Can you not do a more detailed search?
Yes, no, we found it. All right. Fuck, we lost it. Oh no, it's here.
No, yeah, this was it.
This is it. All right. So Kaladesh pre-release, energy. Energy is a big thing.
Yep.
I'm facing Phil, who is a fantastic control player. And he's normally plays blue-black, almost exclusively plays blue-black, but he's playing blue-green, and it's like kind of weird, but okay. So I sit down against him. I'm playing red-white vehicles, which it served me well.
Yeah.
The previous, yeah, like it in Kaladesh Limited, it's a good archetype. However, turn 1 Thriving Turtle, which enters the battlefield, you gain 2 energy, I think.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm correct, let's pull this rifle. So, Thriving Turtle.
Yep.
Yes, single blue, O3, gain 2 energy.
And then if it attacks, you may pay 2 energy, and if you do, put a +1/+1 counter on it.
Yep. So turn 2 attacks with the turtle, puts a 1/1 counter on it. Casts Glassblower's Puzzle Knot.
Which is the artifact that enters play, gives you 2 energy, and you can crack it to get an additional 2 energy, if I remember correctly.
Yep. So turn 3 attack with the turtle, give it another 1/1 counter. Sack the Glassblower's Puzzle Knot, gain 2 energy. Turn 4 attack with the turtle, again add a third 1/1 counter on it. Cast Glimmer of Genius, get another 2 energy. Attack
so at
with
this
the
point,
turtle.
Thriving Turtle's base is 0/3.
Yeah.
So this entire time, it is now a 3/6 turtle.
Yeah, it's a 3/6 turtle at this point that has done 1, 2, 3, 9 damage to me.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Turn 5, attack with the turtle, put a fourth 1/1 counter on it. Cast Riparian Tiger, gain another 2 energy. Turn 6, attack with the turtle, put a fifth 1/1 counter on it. Cast Servant of the Conduit, get another 2 energy. Turn 7, attack with the turtle, put a sixth 1/1 counter on this fucking thing. Honestly, I spent 2 cards in a single combat trick to get rid of this fucking turtle. And he killed me with something else. And then he killed me with the tiger the next turn. It was dumb. This card is that card was like, it's manageable on its own, but when you have like the fantastic energy generation that green blue does in Kaladesh Limited, it really went all the way. And I don't know if I snap conceded on game 2 when he dropped the turtle turn 1. I just sort of blacked out. I'm pretty sure that I didn't, but I definitely lost that round.
And then I love the next comment below. It says, I've said many times the turtle is an insane limited card. I had 3 in my pool and he helped me 4-0. The biggest I got mine was 7-10.
It's nuts. That's a giant ass turtle.
So now whenever we talk about turtles, we just purposely give a very knowing look to Chris.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that he's okay.
I get legitimate PTSD to Kaladesh pre-release, which like it was a fun night and I love joking about it. But man, was that such a bad beating? And like we were all laughing and like by the time that like it had gotten to turn 3 or 4, we had gotten spectators, right?
Yeah.
Because we were like, what the fuck is going on at this table?
Yeah. The unfortunate thing is that whenever I have silly stories like that, it's usually because it's a not fun, traumatizing experience for my opponent.
Yeah, you're the one doing the not fun, traumatizing stuff.
Yeah.
Your opponent's usually not laughing along with you.
Yeah,
like
Chris is the good humor to laugh at these kind of things. Unfortunately, the kind of stuff the shenanigans I get up to, it's hard to have good humor against.
Yeah, that's true. They're very grindy. But yeah, so that's the turtle story. I hope you guys enjoyed that.
Yeah, I'll share the Dominaria traumatizing Jake story
Next time,
No,
the
next time.
the Theros Spurly, or the Theros Spurly.
Oh boy.
Whenever we get there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this was a lot of fun. I like doing these. We're still not really sure how to approach this. This is the second one that we've done.
Exactly. We're trying to figure this out. I mean, thinking about we're almost sort of approaching this almost like that Ben Stark drafting the hard way kind of deal,
yeah.
where we try to study the set in the context of itself, right? I mean, sometimes we get like little jammy, like we're obviously talking about like cards that probably aren't going to make it in a lot of things, right? Like there's going to be a couple of janky stuff going in there, but it's more to help you guys sort of think about how you want to think about what these cards fit together and see interesting synergies that might come up when you look at your own sealed pool.
Yeah.
Right.
Which, if we help you even a little bit, these couple of hours that we spent on this, totally worth it.
Yeah. We don't claim to be as good as the people at like Limited Resources or like Ben Stark.
Not even close. But ideally, like this is an angle that they're not really approaching it from, right? Which is why we're not giving cards grades, because we're not great at evaluating individual cards.
Nope.
But we can take the cards and look and see how they work together.
Yeah. Give almost a sense of like what Wizards was thinking when they put together this kind of stuff. Not that we claim to be as good as Wizards R&D either.
No. You know what? That's a hill I'll die on. Hire me. I will give you whatever. I will give you Flying and Vigilance in green and black if you really fucking want me to. That's a dumb deep cut. Don't at me.